Genty bounces outside, has a seam. Ashton Genty, he's 10, he's touchdown, Boise State.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
One-on-one down the sidelines. Caught! Flag! Touchdown! Brown doing it for the Cats!
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here is Scatterboo. On top, balance. Stays on his feet. Rolls into the end zone.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
And it's going to be a double pass. Aller loads, fires, deep. Man, there is Warren. Got it. Touchdown, Penn State.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Tyron Lacey, the motion man. Pump fake, Nussmeier goes back shoulder. Touchdown! Tyron Lacey! And LSU wins!
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go on this Wednesday afternoon. What a busy day it has been. Hopefully it's been a great day for you. First time really all year that we've had a little tint of the fall weather. It's beautiful outside, a little windy but beautiful as, of course, the football season gets into the middle part of October, right through the middle part of October. Good afternoon, 365 Sports. Craig Smoak in the green shirt, Paul Catalina in the purple?
No, it's light blue.
Light blue? Okay, I couldn't quite tell.
I'm a little worried right now. Craig's is more teal, too.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I'm looking at the TV, and it looked more green to me. That's why. But Craig's wearing teal. I'm wearing kind of a strawberry color. Not quite pink.
I'm glad that you said that. And I think it's funny that you had to look.
Well, because this is a Tiger Woods, his new logo, Sunday Red. And I got this initially, and then eventually they came out with that blood red that he used to wear when he was winning tournaments in the final round playing golf. We will have today Army quarterback Bryson Daily, who yesterday was honored with the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award, unbeaten top 25 Army. What a great story, the young man from Abernathy, Texas. Chuck Cooperstein in about 15 or 20 minutes. R.J. Choppy of 105.3 The Fan on the bantering, argumentative part of Jerry Jones yesterday. Zach Gelb, Chad Brendle on Cincinnati. We'll also have Paul's Top 5 and Yahoo Sports columnist Dan Wetzel. All of that today on 365 Sports. How often do you guys ever remember in really any sport where in the middle of the season a rule that was used to benefit Dan Lanning in Oregon last week, a critical part of the game, the last few seconds of the game, gets changed in the middle of the year?
I don't remember one at all. Not to, I don't remember one at all. And this one, though, I agree with them having to change it because now that the cat's out of the bag and, Dan Lanning admitted that they practiced it, they did it on purpose and all this, they kind of had to do something because it's a copycat sport, and never been like, well, run the 12th guy out there. So what? It's a 5-yard penalty, but we really care more about the time they can run off, especially say that there's only 5 seconds left on the clock, right? And then, yeah, I know the game can't end in a defensive penalty, but if we just stopped your best play and now you have to do a play that we know exactly what you're going to run, well, there we go.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often, if ever. I don't know. I don't feel like we've really spent much time ever discussing rules on this show in the last 3 or 4 years, unless I'm just blanking on something, but certainly nothing that led to a rule change of any kind. So that game continues to be in the national conversation because of that. I'm, aware of there's a lot of Ohio State fans that are like, well, if that's a change call, then the outcome should be looked at differently and whatnot. And it's like, no, that's not the way that it works, unfortunately, for the Buckeyes. But I think it's smart to address it. And unfortunate they didn't catch that could be a loophole previously. But now you know that it's out there, and in order to avoid that becoming a bigger issue, you're making a quick change to it. So I'm sure there's somebody somewhere out there that has a problem with that, but glad to see that they're acting quickly, probably the quickest they've acted on anything. It feels like everything else in college sports seems like it takes forever to get done. But this just took a matter of, 4 days to get turned around.
Yeah, the interpretation, what Ohio State was able to do was get a penalty, but the time that was missed, that went off the clock, never was put back because of the loophole in the penalty. And because Oregon knew that, they took advantage of it. It cost Ohio State a few seconds. And if this would have happened to Oregon State or maybe Iowa State, I don't know if the NCAA changes the rule, but it's an Oregon-Ohio State game, and so it got a lot of attention, and the Buckeyes also with a little clout. But that's not why – I hope not, because Ohio State got mad. Billy Napier.
I will point this out, though. There is still a tiny loophole.
In the loophole.
In that if it's a legitimate mistake and the player is running off the field – they say that the time will not be put back on, but that feels to me like you just told guys like Dan Lanning, okay, run him on and then run him off.
Yes.
Like, make sure he doesn't affect the play. So, I don't know. I just know that smart coaches will always find a way.
It's not even smart coaches. It's just coaches will find a way because they all look for loopholes. And, I mean, you see the rash of guys dropping like flies on the field every Saturday now.
Yeah.
I was sitting there watching Ole Miss, and in that game, both sides had guys go down just while a drive's going on. Like right as there's some momentum gets kicked up, here's guys just all of a sudden they're hurt, and they pop back up, and they just run to the sideline like it was no big deal. Like that's going on constantly now. It feels like at least once in every game that I'm watching. So, yeah, and I'll say this. I still don't know that they did that on purpose. I know that it's fun to wink, wink, nod, nod, and act like you did after the fact, but I don't know.
He said they did.
Did he say exactly that they did?
Yeah, he said they practiced it because they did it on purpose because I don't know if it was Dan Lanning.
I know he said that they practice situations.
Analyst. Yeah.
They practice all sorts of situations, but I don't know that he ever said, like, yeah, we intentionally did that.
I thought, I don't have the quote, but
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it's a Bill Belichick. Maybe you or one of you guys said it's a Bill Belichick type thing that you knew the rules. And you have all these football analysts, and you wonder how many of them maybe were grinding on some of these rule changes or even rules. But it was brilliant no matter what, because it eventually cost Ohio State what was incredible other than points, which was the value of time left in the game. Billy Napier on the SEC coaches call about, I don't see that with the Big 12 anymore. Do they do that? Used to get an email all the time about the Big 12 coaches would go like whatever. It's 16 coaches. It's probably impossible. Billy Napier on the SEC call about hot seat speculation. I don't have any control over that. I do think that we are improving is what he said.
Well, yeah. I mean, I get that somebody has to ask him about how it affects you or whatever. But, yeah, he has absolutely no control. Billy Napier is not going to be the coach at Florida next year, barring a miraculous finish to the season. But they've already lost to A&M, Miami, and Tennessee this year, and that's not what they're paying him to do. And so because of that, like, you're not beating any of the good teams you played. So, yeah, he's gonna get moved out the door, and they haven't been good the entire time he's been there. And we'll see what happens. But, yeah, he doesn't have any control over it. And they played really well against UCF. They played okay. They played good on defense. They played good on defense against Tennessee. I would not say they played well on offense, but they were there in overtime with a chance to win it. But the offense has really been everybody's biggest problem over the Billy Napier tenure because he insists on calling the plays, and he is not he's kind of stuck in the Jimbo mode of, no, my offense works. Like, well, it seems like everybody you played disagrees.
Well, first of all, going back to the hotline thing, I don't think it'd be too much to have 16 teams because the SEC has 16 teams, and they do it. So
my question, well, I agree. My question is, we used to get an email that would mention that the coaches call and the order and when it would start and even a link to it. I haven't gotten one of those, I think, in a couple, 2 or 3 years. I don't know if the changes in the media relations department force that or not. But the time, yeah, I mean, it's 5 minutes or so. It's not like they're on for very long.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, it's not impossible because clearly one's doing it with the same amount of teams, so you could do it. I guess they just don't do it anymore. But regardless on this situation, I mean, I think the writing's kind of on the wall. And, you look at that schedule, and maybe they beat Kentucky this weekend, but beyond that, you play Georgia, you play Texas, you play LSU, and you play Ole Miss over the next month after that. So that's very likely 0-4. You add on the fact you're 3-3 now, so that Kentucky game can maybe give you a fourth win. And then you play Florida State at the end of the year, and who the hell knows, like one of the worst Florida State matchups in I guess recent history probably. Yeah. So that game's not going to matter outside of just those two wanting to beat each other. Unless Florida finds a way to snag another win somewhere, but hard to see where that's going to come after this Kentucky game this weekend, which that might not even be a win. It is in the swamp, but, yeah, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, those are all three of those. The first three are all top 10 teams right now. That's what's remaining on Florida's schedule. So, yeah, it's hard to see where they're going to be able to make the postseason, and therefore, I don't know if that would ensure his job just simply getting to 6 wins, which is a stretch right now, but certainly not making a bowl game would seem to be the final nail in any coffin that Billy Napier has down in Gainesville. But I don't know. Maybe they view it differently. It doesn't sound like it, though. It sounds like that man needs to win, and it's hard to see where those wins are coming from.
Brent Venables needs a win. After getting smoked by Texas, last year they had a nice bounce-back year. The offense looked atrocious. We even asked Phil Bennett about Oklahoma's offense. He knows a couple of the guys on that staff, including Seth Luttrell. He was asked about midseason changes on his offensive staff on Tuesday. You go back and look at where I've been. I've not been a part of any staff changes in the middle of the season. Bill Snyder, Bob Stoops, or at Clemson with Dabo. There are always problems. Sometimes people know about them. Sometimes they don't. There's always some level of struggle. You got to work through your problems, find the best possible solutions, and he went on to say more. Is he making the right decision by not having any coaching changes?
Well, I mean, I'll let Craig speak more deeply on this because he knows the roster more, but I don't really think it's the coach's issue right now, other than if those coaches can't get you better players in the coming years, then yes, you need to make changes, but right now it's a talent issue to me, not a scheme issue.
Yeah, I think people just want heads to roll just to feel some blood on their hands and to feel like something's being done. I don't know what good it does you right now. Like, so you're just going to grab a guy on staff, mind you, and you're just going to make that switch, and that guy's going to suddenly make the offensive line block better and the receivers healthy and your quarterback's better. I don't think so. I just think people have seen enough, and that's understandable when it comes to Seth Luttrell. But, yeah, I don't know. There's this big fervor after getting blown out by Texas, which I understand that kind of amps everything up. But wanting to see, some kind of change. Like, there has to be a change on Monday. I've seen all these people. There has to be a change of Sooner 42 Bob. There needs to be a change on Monday. It's like, what good is any change going to do right now? Who's going to call plays that's going to be any better than what they already have? And how's the personnel change as a result of that? So it's just fans wanting to see some bloodshed because they need to feel like changes are being made. Now, look, the offseason, yeah, you clearly have to do something. You need to figure something out because otherwise Brent Venables is going to be the one that's on the chopping block here sooner rather than later. Yeah. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what good it does in the middle of the season or what great options. They want Joe John Finley gone. That's a Sooner guy right there. Seth Luttrell's a Sooner guy.
So is DeMarco Murray.
DeMarco Murray, people have seen they want him gone. He's another Sooner guy, which I know that's the downside to hiring alumni. But yeah, I don't know how that benefits you in any way, and it's certainly not going to make you win more. So if you want to, put some guys out on the street a little bit earlier than you normally would and still want to lose a bunch of games, then by all means burn bridges and go out just with everybody miserable. But outside of that, like I say, it's like Baylor. It's like, what good does it do to fire Aranda with 6 games left?
That's what I've said. I mean,
it's like, what does it do?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing this. We got to get started. It's like, there's nothing to get started on, guys. Like, you still have to build the recruiting class. Like, the surefire way to ruin it is to just, fire guys right now with no plan in place. But yeah, it's like people don't think about the next step. So you're sitting there starting a head coaching search. You mean a search that nobody's going to take for another 4 or 5 weeks? So what is the point?
Well, part of it is I think fans need to come to grips, and also universities, when they make these decisions, need to come to grips with the fact of, look, when you're firing your coach, you're starting out behind the 8 ball. Like you're not going to find a timeline that you're like, oh, Smokey's fired, Craig's hired, recruiting class saved. We got the best transfers too. National champs next year. Yeah, you're just not going to do that.
This isn't Texas Tech going and hiring Joey McGuire, a few years back.
Yeah, that was a rarity.
That made sense, for everybody to do it. It sucked for Baylor, and I think Joey would even say, maybe I should have done that differently. But, then it wasn't a big – it made sense. He was a position coach that goes to take a head coaching job and gets starting from scratch, basically, because Matt Wells didn't leave it all very stocked all that well in terms of, all the changes McGuire wanted to make. But – what's the new OC going to do right now? Nothing for you. So, yeah, you got to let this ride out and just take your lumps and then, start making your plans. What you can do is start making your plans for what you are going to do when that time comes here in a few weeks. But no point right now.
By the way, Oklahoma has had, again, like a lot of the teams with those names, top 10 recruiting classes. Last year, the year before that, comprehensive list if you include everybody that ranks them. So it's not like they're devoid of talent. But I'll tell you right now, I don't know what Hawkins can end up being. I did not like what I saw. Not in the offense that people are used to at Oklahoma. And Jackson Arnold has obviously not been the answer. I saw where they discussed the possibility of redshirting him. I don't know if he'll be back. Perhaps. I don't know. Also, here's the neat note. Chuck Cooperstein, by the way, in 10 minutes will join the show. USC sells a VIP experience called Run with the Team. Fans can take the field with the Trojan football players. It costs somewhere between about $1,500 and $1,800, depending on the game. This week at Penn State, a Penn State fan did it in full gear. And again, another way to make money in certain ways to add to the
Yeah, but look, when you allow to have $1,800 in the free cash to control your opponent like this, and this is
money. It's just money.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, way to go, the Penn State fan. I don't know how much he affected the game, but he's got some views on it. I thought it was pretty funny. Look, if you've got $1,800 to burn and you can rub in USC's face, I guess.
I can see Kim Coulter doing this on a road trip in Texas.
Yeah, I can also see a lot of Adderall-eyed TikTokers that are going to be doing this on a regular basis with things like this. But yeah, that's a cool little thing. That dude looks like he's having a blast. And, yeah, it seems like a unique experience. I don't know if it's really $1,500, $2,000, close to $2,000, but based on that video, it looks like it might be. So if you got the scratch, and especially if you're a USC fan or just a college football guy who wants to say you ran out on the field at USC, then yeah, that seems like a cool deal and a pretty simplistic way to make a few extra $1,000 if enough people sign up.
All right, then this one here, I just happened to see this today. We have had the South Dakota State coach on. We've had North Dakota State and what they've done. They're meeting numbers 1 and number 2. Meet this week. I believe the game is in Fargo. South Dakota State has won back-to-back national titles. They've won 5 consecutive games against North Dakota State, who used to run. The Bison ran FCS. North Dakota State and South Dakota State meet again. Game of the week, really, in a lot of ways in college football, if you look at the analytics, the data, the rankings, and more. North Dakota State, of course, has a ton of national titles. But you know what? South Dakota State has won the last 2 in 2022 and also in 2023. North Dakota State won a ton. Sam Houston won the year of COVID, which was great to see the Bearcats do that in 2020. Last time for North Dakota State was 2021. They play this weekend. It's on ESPN. It's a night game if you have any interest in watching them play. All right, around the corner, we will.
Did we do Jeff Sims?
No, yeah. So a quarterback change, not good news for Arizona State football.
No, the human turnover machine, Jeff Sims, is their backup to Sam Leavitt, and he will start. Sam Leavitt has a rib injury, I believe, and is going to be out for a couple weeks. So let's see. We'll see how good Kenny Dillingham is at coaching up quarterbacks, because at Georgia Tech and at Nebraska, Jeff Sims was the human fumble.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a downgrade. No other way to put that. Sam Levitt's had some good moments. Also had some, bumps along the way. He's a young guy, but I thought he, played pretty well last time I saw him. And it's unfortunate that right as they're starting to get some, good momentum going, the big win the other night, that now he's out of the lineup. That just sucks because they're sitting in a really good spot now. And this does, I think, perhaps derail him for a couple weeks, however long Levitt's going to be out. So, yeah, that's an unfortunate turn of events. I didn't realize he was banged up, or just didn't maybe think that it was all that serious to where he would miss time. But, yeah, that's not going to be good. I'm trying to pull up their schedule here, but for some reason, you got Cincinnati this weekend. We talked a bit about that yesterday.
Back-to-back road games, right?
That's a road game, so I don't like their chances as much with Jeff Sims going into Cincinnati. They definitely don't have the better quarterback. Brendan Sorsby is light years beyond what Jeff Sims has been, so that would just tip that game further in Cincy's favor for me, whereas maybe it's a really close game. Maybe it's a little less close as a result of that. I don't know. And then you travel to Stillwater. We'll see if Jeff Sims is the starter again, next week, but that's a bummer. That's definitely a bummer for Arizona State, although it does look like they got the bye after this. So just get through this weekend. Scattaboo.
Yeah, a lot of it.
And then, maybe get a win and then get into that bye week and see where you are on the other side of that thing. But, yeah, they need to get him healthy.
In his career, he's thrown 31 touchdowns. He's also thrown 29 interceptions. And I watched him at Nebraska, believe me, early on, and he doesn't just throw picks. He doesn't handle the ball, and he doesn't protect the ball, which is the number one thing an offense should do and the number one thing you want your quarterback to do. But good luck to him. Hopefully he's turned the corner. Arizona State with now Jeff Sims, the transfer from first Georgia Tech, then Nebraska, and now in Tempe. All right, this hour, Chuck Cooperstein. This hour, Army quarterback Bryson Daily, who just won that Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award. What a wonderful young man, and what a hell of a football player. And his story from Abernathy, Texas, by the way, where he was a high school star, multi-sport. Dan Wetzel, R.J. Choppy, Chad Brendle on Cincinnati. Also Zach Gelb, who will be on his way to watch the Mets in Game 3 of their series against the Dodgers, and so much more. David Smoak and Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. This is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you feel better. Isn't that what you want to do? Even if you feel pretty good, you could always feel better. And here's what can happen. And this is for, I don't know if this starts to occur in the upper 30s, but 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. As you get older, your body changes. Father time takes over in many different ways. And it also takes over with testosterone dropping, the levels inside your body. And maybe it's not you. But if you aren't quite as focused, or you're not quite as energetic, or you're not sleeping as well, you just don't feel right, and you might even have issues when it comes to ED or sex drive. Testosterone can a lot less drop in testosterone can affect that. One of those symptoms or any of them. Dr. Kent Petty can help you out. Contact him, pettycliniclot.com. Tell him I sent you. He will then set you up and take care of you getting your blood drawn. He gets the result. If your testosterone level's too low, he can put you in a program to increase it at pettycliniclot.com.
Get ready for Jeep Adventure Days at Allen Samuels in Waco. Right now, drive away in a brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xe or a Wrangler 4xe with an unbeatable 0% financing for 72 months. Looking for a Wagoneer? We've got you covered with 3.9% for 72 months on all Wagoneers. First responders get an extra $500 off. Hurry in. Don't miss these incredible offers only at Allen Samuels in Waco. Your friend in the car business.
Come by. Let's be friends.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Go
Ghost Hydration is a fully transparent, fully loaded, full-flavored hydration drink that we've all been waiting for. Ghost is caffeine-free with electrolytes, 0 sugar, and low sodium that'll hydrate your body before, during, and after your workout. Consumer loved with authentic flavors, so grab and enjoy a Sour Patch Kids Blue Raspberry and Red Berry, along with the Kiwi Strawberry, Orange Squeeze, or Lemon Lime. Ghost Hydration can truly be used anytime. Remember, it's formulated for sports, but made for life.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
When you work with a bank, you should expect the best of everything. That includes face-to-face personal service and the kind of community banking care that only comes from one neighbor to another. That's exactly what you'll get from the First National Bank of Central Texas, where you will know your banker works just as hard as you do. Once again, that's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Settle for nothing less than the first. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Voice of the Mavericks, award-winning broadcaster, and as knowledgeable about sports as anyone I've known. I put 2 people in that category. With all due respect to anybody else, Chuck Cooperstein and Norm Hitzkiss. And Chuck Cooperstein, Coop, joins us on 365 Sports. So I'm watching the post of the Cowboys disaster, Chuck, against the Lions. And yes, we're going to get into yesterday's talk show fever. But I saw your tweet about Jerry and that nobody else in the sports business does what he does, general manager, owner, etc. And I never realized that 2 days later he would trump that type of publicity. What are your thoughts? Let's start with yesterday, though. What are your thoughts about what you heard and what was done on 105.3 The Fan?
I mean, it was sad. Mm-hmm. I guess that's probably the overriding emotion that it's come to this. That it's almost as if Jerry has finally come to the realization that the smoke and mirrors have cleared, and the reality has set in. That his ability to sell has been compromised by the way his team has played, and especially the way it's played at home. It's one thing. It'd be one thing if they were 3-3 and they were, especially the games at home were close games, competitive games. Stuff happens at the end of the game. Things that have happened to the Cowboys for the last almost 30 years that we talk about that drive fans crazy, but it's still basically about the game. Here it's taken to a different level because the Cowboys simply have not been competitive. They have not been competitive in any of their 3 losses. And then you look at, the games that they've won. I mean, the Browns have proven to be a fraud. They're awful. The Giants and the Steelers, can't move the ball on a high school team, let alone moving on an NFL team. And yet, the Cowboys won those games scoring 20 points. I mean, that kind of tells you where their opponents were. And they're just in a really bad place right now. And I thought that Jerry, he handled it so badly on every imaginable level, not the least of which obviously was trying to suggest that he paid, Sean Sharif, RJ Choppy, and Bobby Belt, which is just not the case. It was a complete falsehood. And why he went there, I don't know.
Chuck, Sean asked him the question, I think, that the one that put him over the edge, although he was clearly testy going in, which was about the standard of the Cowboys and that it was supposed to be rings. And that I wonder if it's the realization for him finally, because every time I've ever been to a Jerry press conference, I've ever been to that media scrum, when I hear him talking, sometimes I think, does he think it's 1997 right now and not what year it actually is? Like maybe it has hit him that it's been 30 years, man. 30 years.
Well, it's actually 29 years, but who's counting, right? You know, I mean, really, what, at this point, what can you say as a member of the media, and what can he say, you know, to try to make fans feel better? He can't. I mean, again, it'd be one thing, you know, his team won 12 games each of the last 3 years, and that should not go unnoticed and should not go unappreciated. It's very, very hard to do. You know, everybody is part of this rings culture. And you know, frankly, it's something that I've never subscribed to, because you as fans are not entitled to championships. You're not entitled to them. You're entitled to have a team that has the ability to compete for them, which this team has had the last 3 years. They certainly don't look like they've had it this year through 6 games. And thus, it was understandable, and it should be understandable to Jerry, why people would ask directly why this has gone the way it has gone. Why did you do what you did in the spring and believe that that was going to allow for a different result than what's taken place so far?
Chuck, in all your years, and you used to do shows all the time, and now, of course, broadcast voice of the Mavericks, did anyone ever like come at you like that as a general manager or a head coach or anyone?
Bobby Valentine did when the Rangers got off to a 1-10 start in 1987. I was in his office after they had gone to 1-10, or actually it was they were 1-10. They had blown a game in Milwaukee, and that was the first game back in Texas. And I was in the clubhouse after the game, and I asked a question to Bobby, and Tom Green was there too, and it didn't go particularly well. But you know, they ultimately respected me, and I respected them. You know, the thing is, I wonder at times, does Jerry really respect the media? Does he really believe that we don't see what we see? And you know, if we are bringing this up for, why does he not then, you know, just go directly and say, this is why things are the way they are, and then, you know, allow for it to be pressed? And obviously, the greatest example here is the whole Derrick Henry situation. You know, and Derrick Henry could have been had here. Jerry says they didn't have the money to do it. Of course they had the money to do it. All they had to do was make sure that they took care of the people that they needed to take care of in a timely manner. But they didn't do that, and that was by their choice to not do it. And so then you get to a point where you get to the end of the preseason, you haven't done anything, and it becomes a colossal mess. I mean, he could be challenged on these things and has been challenged on these things, but I think the fact that his team was embarrassed as it was at home, the way it was. I mean, look, the only game that I can remember even being close to that type of home embarrassment for the Cowboys was the 44-0 game against the Bears in 1985.
Oh God!
When here they kicked 3 field goals. Okay, there they didn't even score.
No.
You know, Chuck, it's funny you mentioned Bobby Valentine. Smokey, you remember we had an awkward exchange with him one time, and it was in 2013. He had just gotten back into media, and he was the Red Sox manager the year before. And I asked him, I said, well, you know, the Red Sox are here making this deep playoff push. What are your thoughts, having been in that clubhouse, about the rapid turnaround? And I was hoping he would say, like, yeah, there were some things, and, you know, maybe like cop to a little bit of, like, you know, creating a chemistry problem there. He got mad that I even asked him about the Red Sox, and it was the ALDS. Like, there were only a few teams playing at the time. So what else were we going to ask him about?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, no, but I will say Bobby Valentine, is one of the most brilliant baseball people I've ever been around in my life. I mean, he really is one of those guys that has forgotten more than you will ever know.
Yeah, and we might see a Subway Series, and the last time and the only time, I guess, was in 2000 when he was with the Mets as the manager. Yep. Chuck, if in fact, I talked to RJ earlier. Oh, I want to share this with you. I asked RJ, I said, did you hear from Galloway? Because, you know, Randy's probably furious that he wasn't a part of this exchange. And RJ, who's going to join us in about an hour, said that Galloway called him up and said it was the golden moment in talk radio, sports talk radio in Dallas. And RJ goes, you had the 3-inch headlines with Jimmy. He goes, no, this was, and I just thought it was cool that Randy reached out to RJ. But where do they go from here? Because I think that he challenged them. He doesn't pay them anything. That's a complete misconception on his part, or maybe his ego.
No, it's a falsehood.
Yeah,
it's a lie.
It's completely wrong. Yeah, they pay the Cowboys. I don't even know if they'll do another segment. Do you think Jerry will back off on this and apologize?
I think it's possible because, Jerry, listen, you know this, David, having been around him that long, and generally speaking, you're around Jerry. You're around him for 10 minutes. You cannot help but like him.
Yep.
You can't. I think the best thing, frankly, is that there is no game this week. Everything's going to calm down, and over a few days, and cooler heads are going to prevail, and we'll get to next week. I know he's got a spot that he does on Fridays on 105.3 as well in the midday. But I think everything will calm down and it'll be back to normal, such as normal can be around the Cowboys. But I mean, I think that if Jerry really tries to put his foot down and say, I'm not talking to those guys anymore. I want to go somewhere else to do it. I mean, that's the fact that he does that in Morning Drive, which is still the gold standard of radio. To me, that puts tremendous pressure then on the fan and their management, and basically telling Jerry, look, these are our guys. They've done this with you for 14 years. Okay. It's not like, these guys are new to the party here. They've done it with you for 14 years. Hey, this is it. And then, does Jerry raise the ante? And when we get to the end of the contract, and I have no idea how long their contract is, and this is, well, you know what, if that's the case, well, we're going to find some other place to go. And then what does that mean for Odyssey? I mean, do we really want to go to the nuclear option here? And where I just don't see the necessity for it. And I do think that ultimately cooler heads will prevail.
You want to talk college football?
I do. I'm curious, Chuck, your thoughts on Billy Napier right now and his seat. And, obviously I don't think he's going to be the coach there next year. But where does Florida go from here? They have been a team for the last decade and a half that keeps hitting a ceiling that for a school like them does not exist.
Well, I think we saw classic Billy on Saturday night against Tennessee. That was an absolutely winnable game. Tennessee was basically begging Florida to win the game, and Billy just messed it up because that's what he does. He is tremendous as an organizer, and there was so much that needed to be organized in the program when he came in. And, they basically gave him an unlimited checkbook and he exceeded it. But they got that right. But on the sidelines, he is a veritable clock management disaster. No matter what coach you believe is a really bad or awful clock manager, he does not hold a candle to Billy in that department. And we saw it at the end of the first half, when Florida wound up with a penalty that took a field goal off the board that could have made it 6-0 at the end of the half, and just the way they managed the clock to get to that point, and then the utter chaos late in the game where ultimately They somehow managed to get a touchdown, and 29 seconds to go. You're on the road at against the number 8 team in the country. I am usually from the school of coaches should do no harm. You don't discount points. Points kind of matter, but I would have gone for 2 there against Tennessee on the road. If you went into that game thinking you had one play with 30 seconds to go that could win the game for you, would you do it? Yeah. And of course, they score the touchdown. They're going to go for 2. They run a swinging gate play that they feel like Tennessee had matched, and then they call a timeout and then kick the extra point. I guess that's what made it all the crazier. It's like, call the timeout, go for 2. Just go for 2. Line up and run the play. Run pass option with Lagway, and I mean, who by the way is tremendous, and is going. He might be the one reason Billy stays because Lagway loves him. I don't know what Lagway sees in him, but Lagway loves him. And the last thing this team needs is not only to have to go through yet another coaching change, but to lose a guy that could very well be a truly elite college quarterback. And that's very possible right now. So it's a disaster there. It's not going to be easily fixed. He's got a $26 million buyout. The athletic director has already hired 2 coaches, one of whom, frankly, succeeded until he didn't succeed. Dan Mullen succeeded. And then Dan Mullen decided that he didn't want to coach anymore and stopped coaching that team and stopped running that program. And that led to Billy, coming to the scene. So you have that. You have an athletic director who's already hired 2 coaches. It's rare in the SEC you get to hire a third. However, there is an interim president at the university right now because of a scandal that the prior president basically wound up having to leave. And the interim president is the former president who hired the athletic director, who, by the way, is Scott Strickland, who used to be many, 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 many years ago the Baylor sports information director.
Small world.
Yep.
Small
That's
world.
Exactly right. Yep.
Chuck, you're up there in Dallas where we just saw one of the least, competitive chapters of the Red River Showdown. And 2 programs that are going wildly different directions right now in their first year in the SEC. Texas, number 1, and with Georgia this weekend, and Oklahoma. You got fans screaming for midseason coaching changes and this and that. It's just none of it's good. Your thoughts on where those 2 programs find themselves and coming out of Dallas last weekend?
Well, look, Sark has slowly, carefully built the monster. He has built the monster that, frankly, Texas should be, that the University of Texas should be. They're terrific, and they are the best team in the country that I've seen this year, and frankly, by a lot. In Oklahoma's case, remember 2 years ago, Oklahoma got beat 49-0. Last year, they beat Texas. And Texas was pretty darn good last year. It was going to be a pot. Given their receiver situation where you've got 5 or 6 receivers that are out of the lineup and you got a freshman quarterback who's, pretty uncertain. I guess the bigger story there is why has Jackson Arnold failed as badly as he failed? Especially when it looked like in the bowl game last year, like there might really be something there, that he was, the 5-star quarterback who was ready to live up to the hype. But how has that fallen off the cliff as quickly as it's fallen off? I don't think Oklahoma's defense is pretty good. And Venables is obviously a very good defensive coach and has been for years. But they've got to get the offense fixed. And frankly, given their quarterbacks, what I've seen of their quarterbacks, I don't know if they're being coached wrong. I don't know if they don't have the talent, but it's a mess, and they'll never be able to score enough points in the SEC given how they are playing right now. So I don't necessarily think it's a long-term thing. Everybody, I don't follow recruiting, in the most granular of ways, but Venables, by all accounts, has recruited well. He's recruited top 10 classes to Oklahoma. So they should be able to have enough on hand to to get some stuff done. Now, again, I've heard some things that their NIL situation is not good, that they started late, that they're really playing catch up in that area. And let's face it, guys, this is the world we're living in today, and you got to be able to play that game. And we all know Texas can play that game. Yep. And Texas can play that game better than anybody else if that's what they want to do. And that's why I don't want to say NIL is the total reason why they are where they are, but I do think it certainly helped. Sark is recruited well from the get-go, and he recruited properly too. You look at how he built the program. He knew that when he got to Texas that his interior lines were not nearly good enough. And he spent a lot of those first two recruiting classes taking care of that. That, if we're going to play in the SEC, we got to man up. We got to get some big boys in there who can move and, can make things happen. And he's done that. And you look at how they play up front. Is there anyone that's better than they are? I haven't seen it.
No, they've got some dudes. They had the NIL, the transfer portal, and the fact that he just created methodically. He kind of gutted all the entitlement or whatever it might have been, and what he's done is frightening if you don't like Texas. There's no doubt. Coop, last thing, I can't let you go without asking you about the Mavericks. Great run last year to the championship series. Your thoughts about maybe expectations for this year?
Well, the expectations are high, and they should be high. I think what they've done in the offseason has made their team a better team. It's made them a deeper team. Having said that, they still need their stars to be able to play. And, Luka has not played in October, and apparently he's not going to play tomorrow night, the final preseason game. But I don't worry too much about that. What I do want to see is just how those three, Luka, Kyrie Irving, and Klay Thompson, how they play off of each other, at both ends of the floor, what that all means. So, it could very well be, and it's a bit unfortunate because the Mavericks have a very home-heavy schedule to start the season. They play 7 of their first 9 at home. You'd love to be able to hit the ground running and take advantage of all that. I don't know that they're necessarily going to be able to get off to that type of hot start. And frankly, in the kid era, it's one of those things where, they haven't necessarily started great. Certainly in 22 and 24, that was the case, but they finished great. And, we'll see how that all comes together. But Doncic is certainly MVP worthy. Klay seems to be able, even though, he had that bad night the other night against the Clippers, Luka's coming down the lane and defenses are going to converge on him and he's going to kick it to the corner and he's kicking it to Klay Thompson. Okay. He's kicking it to Klay Thompson and not Derrick Jones, with all due respect to Derrick Jones and what he meant to the team last year. He's kicking it to Klay Thompson. That's the reason the Mavericks did not beat Boston in the playoffs and the finals. They just didn't shoot the ball well enough. Didn't have outside shooting. Well, they got outside shooting with Thompson. They got outside shooting with Quentin Grimes. Why Detroit gave up on him, I don't know, but the Mavericks are certainly thrilled that they did in the Tim Hardaway trade. Najee Marshall shot 38% from three last year in New Orleans. Now, was that an outlier? Because he had never shot higher than 33%, I believe, before then. So it looks like he's going to be able to do that. You've got to be able to spread the floor. They can do that. They're not quite as good, defensively. With Thompson in place of Derrick Jones. If this was Klay 10 years ago, that'd be a different argument, but that's not what it is now. But the two centers are rim protectors. They're dynamic there. Lively looks to be, even more improved, and he improved by leaps and bounds as the season went on. Gafford's a terrific compliment to him. They're really, really good. They ought to be able to finish in the top four at least and get home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. If it all hits, guys, they could very well be a top 2 team in the West.
Well, they were fun to watch last year. Great mix. Love the trade they made in the middle of the year that gave them the spark, and also what they have coming back. Thanks for your time, man. We could go forever with you. Appreciate your thoughts on the Jerry flare-up and the Cowboys and also college football and the Mavericks. Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate you having me, guys, as always.
Chuck Cooperstein. voice of the Mavericks, as knowledgeable as you'll ever get when it comes to sports. We appreciate him. Somebody asked, where was he before Dallas? I think he was at WIP in Philadelphia, but he's been in the Dallas market for as long as I've been in the broadcast business, since 1981 that I remember. When we come back, Army Cadets quarterback Bryson Daily. We'll also have Dan Wetzel today, RJ Choppy from the Fan in Dallas on yesterday's flare-up with Jerry Jones and more. And this is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium, and they have a new menu inside McLean Stadium. If you are a member, the food there, the chefs and how they present it, delicious. New menu including Chef Lee. He's introduced some new dishes, shared his inspiration. Order the bruschetta for your next appetizer, or try out the gorgonzola pear salad for a light lunch or dinner. But, yeah, they have fantastic, delicious steaks, unbelievable seafood, and everything else in between, including beef or pork loin. They have it, and they do a great job with it. The Baylor Club also, it's just a nice place for you to be able to, if that's what you want, somewhere to go and have a nice dinner prepared for you, etc. They have a buffet that is eye-opening. And then also the fact that they have rooms if you have a business meeting, if you're trying to get a sponsor or a client or whatever you do for a living and you want some peace and quiet away from the office, there's rooms available for that too. And then the views of McLean Stadium and across the Brazos River and I-35, the Foster Pavilion, where Baylor men's and women's basketball enter their first full year of playing in that beautiful, beautiful place. The Baylor Club, Mike Mosel, general manager. You can contact them on Facebook, the Baylor Club. Mike Mosel, the general manager. Memberships available.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Just won the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award for the best player out of the state of Texas for his quarterback play at Army at West Point. Bryson Daily from Abernathy High School with us on 365 Sports. Man, what a year. I know you're having a great run, but what does it mean for a young kid from Texas, now a young man at West Point, to win an award with Earl Campbell's name on it?
It's awesome. My family was big UT fans growing up, so I knew all about Earl Campbell, the Tyler Rose, Earl Campbell, Ricky Williams, and some of the great running backs that played there. But yeah, I grew up knowing that name in my household, and it's an absolute honor to win an award with his name on it. It's pretty cool.
Bryson, you guys have been one of the biggest surprises of the season. You and Navy, who you're going to see here in a couple months, which is really exciting for all of us as football fans. But do you think people are surprised at how diverse your offense is, even within the scheme that they've been seeing for years?
Yeah, I think, we came in this season with a lot of unknowns. We didn't have the success we wanted to last year in a different offense. We came in with a new coordinator, so I think a lot of people just didn't know what to expect. But we knew in this building what we had, how good of a coordinator Coach Worley was, and, how good of the players were that we had here. So, it wasn't a surprise to us.
I talked to your coach, Justin Wiley. He was on the staff at Abernathy when you were there. By the way, he says hi. He told me that what you ran at Abernathy was pretty similar to what he sees what you're running at Army. Is that correct? Did that make that transition a lot easier?
Yeah, there's a few schemes for sure that we ran. We ran a lot of gun option stuff at Abernathy, a lot of QB power, QB zone. And we run a good amount of that here. So that did help the transition quite a bit. And, I got a lot of carries in high school. So, that was, not a big change as I came here.
He called you a hometown hero. I know with the fact that you're at a military academy, the last thing you think about is yourself. But he said that his son was the ball boy. He now wears 13, and everybody looks up to what Bryson Daily represented when you were at high school there. What does that mean to you?
It's an absolute honor as well. I mean, because when I was a ball boy, just like his sons were, I looked up to those players ahead of me and, looked up to them, wanted to be them someday. So just to see that, cycle keep going is pretty cool. And it just tells you how important football is in Texas.
Bryson Daily, the quarterback at West Point, with us on 365 Sports. Paul?
All right. If for those who have not been to Abernathy, Texas in our viewing audience, or to West Texas, which I've heard Texas described as it's like really 5 states in one, and West Texas is its own kind of state within the state. What would you say would bring people to Abernathy, or is the best part about it?
Yeah, I think all what you said is accurate. Very different parts of Texas. It's such a big state. As far as what would bring you to West Texas, I'm not so sure unless Texas Tech game or something. But it's great. It's the best part about it's the people there. It's just good, hardworking people. That are good people too. And it was a great place to grow up. Play football and go to school. The people in the communities, rally behind their sports and their young people. And that was so great about growing up in West Texas.
Bryson, what's it like to be at a service academy and representing not only West Point, service academies in general, your hometown, but the United States?
Yeah, it's, again, an honor. So many great people have come to this institution. Of course, big military officers, generals, and, U.S. presidents. And, we have people come in our building every day that are very important and that have done some great things in our world, in our country. And just getting to, wear the brand of Army and get to play for it is pretty special, knowing all the people you represent, that have gone here, that serve in the Army, and just all the people who are connected to this place.
What is your specialty going to be when you're done playing football?
So right now, we don't learn until December.
Okay.
What branch we're going into. I put engineers with a detail of infantry as my number 1 overall. So basically, I would start out as an infantry officer and transition into the engineer corps as my career progresses. So that's what I'm hoping for.
You know, I have one of the high school coaches here in Waco area that coaches at Midway now. Joe Gillespie was at Tulsa, TCU. He also was from Stephenville. And when he was at Tulsa, they played Navy like 8 times and beat them once because they could not prepare in time for the triple option and what Navy was doing or what Army was doing or what Air Force has, of course, done as well. How many reps? What is the precision, the perfect offense for the military academies? Can you try to put that into words?
Yeah. It's a very fundamental offense, like the exact footwork of every play, the exact reads of every play, knowing your specific job. It's truly a system as an offense. You're not just running plays. You're running a system, and it's all based off of, going against certain fronts and, certain read keys on every play. And, it takes a lot of mental capacity for our guys. And that's why, we have a lot of guys that don't play until they're juniors, seniors, just because it takes a while to understand it. So it presents a problem for opposing defenses trying to get ready for it in a week or 2 weeks. That works to our advantage.
It's appropriate then for a service academy to have something that's so tactical, right?
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, you got to have a lot on your plate here at West Point, and that's no different here up at the football team here. So I think it's a really good fit for the guys we have.
Coach Wiley told me when he was on defense at the time that you guys collided. You were playing outside linebacker. You collided in practice one day, and he knocked the heck, and both of you just like it was a collision. And you said to him, that's the hardest you think you've been hit in 2 years. Do you remember that moment?
I think I do. I ran into him pretty good. He's a pretty big guy. We smoked each other. I think he got the better of me actually that day.
He then said that I think it was may have been the year of COVID or what year it was. You're playing Canadian, maybe in the semifinals, and you had a collision with a guy from Canadian. We know their history as a football tradition-rich power, and you were on your way to the sideline, and you glanced at him and said, "Coach, you're now number 2." As far as the hardest collision you remember?
Yeah, no, that was definitely the hardest I've ever been hit. I think to this day. Saul Escamilla, he was the kid from Canadian. I still remember. I talked to him after the game. I've talked to him a couple times since then. He smoked me on a 2-point play. Ball came out. Like he got me that day, and Canadian got us that day. They were a great team that we always went up against.
I love that you remember him.
Yeah,
Escamilla.
Yeah, that was a 35-31 game, I think, in the semis. Is that right, or quarters?
Regional final, yeah.
Regional finals, yeah.
Yeah. So when you are making that decision to make that pitch, make that handoff, and it is, I mean, it's a second and a half that you really have to make it. What could you compare it to mentally about how fast you have to make that decision?
That's a good question. Maybe not to the extent of like hitting a baseball. That's really fast. But honestly, a lot that goes into it is pre-play, that you have a really good idea of what read you think is going to happen. Mm-hmm. The defense doesn't always play along. They do their own thing sometimes, but you have a pretty good idea of what the read's going to be. But then once the play starts, I'd say it's similar to hitting a baseball. You got to make that decision off what they do, pretty quick.
If you get somebody out of position early in the game with what you run, no matter the opponent, because I remember when I was younger, and again, I'm 65, Bryson, so 3 times older than you, but we played against a triple option team, my last game I ever played, thank goodness, and I made the wrong decision on the pitch. And from that point on, it was like Chinese to me. Do you feel that same way about what a team does against you early in the game if you get them out of whack?
If we find some success early and we get them in a front that that we know we can have success against, we try to stay in that and keep attacking that. But, with the sideline iPads now, teams are able to adjust pretty quick, just as we are able to adjust to their defense. So, it's just a constant game of chess, trying to get into the best looks for our guys.
What does it mean for you guys to be having such a good season, just for the future of the young guys out there who are considering Army football? Because it is Army, Navy, Air Force. It's a different commitment than you make anywhere else. And it can be daunting and intimidating, but to see you guys having so much success, how much do you think that helps that next generation go, oh, this can be, I know it's going to be hard, but it can be super fun too?
Yeah, it's awesome, for recruiting in the future of the program, just for us to continue to try to have success, because it is a big decision to make, and there's a lot of variables that go into it. But it's the most rewarding experience. Even before this year and having this success, is extremely rewarding. The people I've met, the things I've gotten to do, it's a very special place. And when you're winning, it just makes it that much better. Hopefully this encourages more guys to come here, because it truly is one decision that no one regrets.
Before the 2023 season, you were on the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award watch list. And obviously last year you mentioned things did not go so well, but you had a good year. What does it mean to then, and I mentioned at the beginning, as far as winning an award with his name on it, then all of a sudden here you are emerging for this year to represent Abernathy, West Point, and really the state of Texas with this award?
Yeah, like I said, growing up in Abernathy, growing up in West Texas, the amount of support I got from those people was tremendous. And still to this day, I have, people from back home coming to games. Like I had a ton of fans at Tulsa get to come up, and I've had some people come all the way up here to New York to watch us play. So just being able to represent my community in Texas to the best of my ability has been awesome. And then now just trying to represent West Point in the Army as best as I can. I'm trying my best every day.
No better backdrop than their stadium in the fall
right
now.
No,
it looks unbelievable. By the way, speaking of Earl Campbell, he threw an Earl Campbell stiff arm last week.
I saw that.
Straight up and down.
It went viral.
Yeah.
You absolutely, you rocked the guy with that stiff arm, Bryson.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to, get my hand good placement and that tackle. So.
Last thing, if you don't mind, and again, congratulations on the honors, but also the 6-0 start and what you guys are doing, ranked in the top 25, which is great. What does it mean when you walk around that gorgeous campus in New York? And I've flown into New York and seen it. It's glorious to be able to represent the West Point.
You're right. Right now it is beautiful here. Best weather in the fall, I think, anywhere in the country. It's a good place to be. But yeah, just, trying to go 1-0 every week and represent this school, this program, and all the people who came before it. That's our goal, and we're trying to do that this week, just go 1-0.
Congratulations, Bryson. Thanks for your time. As Coach Wiley said, you're 1 in a million. I know you won't say that. He said that you made everybody else around you better. That's also what the West Point represents. Congratulations. Continued luck to the cadets, and thanks for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Thanks, Coach Wiley, and beat Navy.
There you go. It's that hurt me a little bit with my father being a Naval Academy graduate, but God bless Bryson Daily and the West Point and military academies. What a good football team. What a story. Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports, joins us. We moved you back because of a great young man at West Point. Dan, I'm sorry.
Yeah, keep talking to him. What are you doing talking to me? I got nothing. I got absolutely nothing.
No, he's off to save the world, so we're good.
Yeah, he's a little busy. 1 in a million. There's 380 million Americans. You think there's 380 of them? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. So you got to increase your number here.
What a great story with the Army and Navy unbeaten top 25, huh?
I mean, it's awesome. It's like the service academies are almost everyone's second favorite team, right? It's just great to see them both doing well, and whether they're winning or losing, I know personally, like there's no way you could have more admiration for a college student than anyone who's at our service academy. And if you've ever been lucky enough to either attend the Army-Navy game, or I would say almost equally different, but attend a game at West Point, at Annapolis, or Colorado Springs, but particularly West Point and Annapolis, it is such a unbelievable opportunity and experience to see those campuses, the cadets, the way everybody, the midshipmen, the way they come into the field, just the whole scene. I just highly, highly recommend anybody with the opportunity, if you happen to find yourself up in New York for a weekend or something, or in the Baltimore, D.C. area, hey, you know what? They're playing. Let's go over to a game. I don't care who they're playing, especially if they're on campus. Just a fantastic deal. And then they're both winning just creates this incredible possibilities of the season. It's just, can you imagine one of these teams in the playoff?
Yep.
Well, Dan, I remember, when they were talking about the scheduling and all of that, like what do you do with Army-Navy weekend? What if one of them could be in the playoff and they're going to keep at the same spot, but 1 year into this thing where we're faced with a realistic scenario where one of them could be in the playoff and then lose the next week and it not affect them.
Yeah, it's wild. So a couple scenarios. I don't know if you already went over this, but if they both finish out 1-2 in the American Athletic Conference, the AAC, they could meet in the conference championship game, which would be 1 week before the Army-Navy game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could have them meet 2 weeks in a row. Fascinatingly, the AAC championship game is played at the campus of the higher seed. So I don't know if it's the first time ever. It's probably not. But the first time in a very long time, you would have either Army visiting Navy in Annapolis or Navy visiting Army in West Point. And they normally always play at a neutral site, usually somewhere on the East Coast. I think they're in Landover this year, just outside D.C. They play in Baltimore, up in Boston, MetLife. That's usually where they play these games. And you could have them play on each other's campus, which alone would be an unbelievable situation. And then you could have 2 straight weeks of Army-Navy. And people are like, well, how would that affect the game? Wouldn't affect it at all. They try to win. Have you ever seen Army-Navy play football? Everything would go into every single of those games. And then, of course, yes, you could win the AAC, lose the next week, but then come back a third week and be the 12th seed in the playoff maybe and play a playoff game, which, talk about America's underdog. So all of that, you got to have a lot happen. Both these guys got to play Notre Dame still. It's really hard to win every game, but the fact that it's the middle of October and Army and Navy are doing so well, I just think is fantastic.
Dan, we talk a lot of Big 12 based on where we are, who we cover, and all of that. And it's been a wild league, as kind of anticipated. BYU, Iowa State, Texas Tech as well, although they're not fully unbeaten, but unbeaten in conference. What have been just sort of your takeaways, your impressions, maybe surprises from what you've seen out of a league that, everybody might have 3 losses on their heads by the end of this thing?
Yeah, we knew it would be a free-for-all because this league just is sort of very even in terms of institutional might or resources. So, yeah, the teams you just mentioned, Utah. No, let me look. Iowa State was predicted to finish 6th in the league. Okay?
Yeah.
Texas Tech 9th.
Okay.
BYU 13th.
Yep.
And Arizona State 16th.
Sounds like my poll, yeah.
Yeah. Those 4 are 1, 2, 3, 4. Colorado's still in there. They only have 1 conference loss, and they kind of open. Kansas State's still in this thing. Arizona State's up at Cincinnati this weekend. That I think they have 1. I don't know. It is a total free for all. This week's a little different. Most weeks you look at the point spreads and they're like the NFL. Everything's 2.5, 3.5, maybe 4 points. Everything's tight. You don't know what's going to happen. The games are competitive, and it's really, really fun. And I love the BYU program. I love that Arizona State's popping, Iowa State's. Anything can happen week in, week out. So I know it's not maybe the best in your region, your area this year, but it's a super fun league, and I think teams can rebound quickly. Next year could be a completely different shuffle of this deck. And it's just sort of it's kind of how a conference should be, which is anybody can win it year in, year out, opposed to there's a couple anchor programs and they sort of dominate, which is how it's traditionally been. I think it's a lot more fun, at least, to have everyone go, hey man, we can win. And not only can we win, but this year you're sitting there saying one of us is going to the playoff. And that's a pretty exciting thing. You're not just going, boy, if Iowa State can run the table, it's really hard to go 13-0. It can happen. You can get in. TCU did it a couple of years ago, made the title game. But for the most part, it's very hard to get into that 14 playoff. Now you got a guaranteed spot, maybe two, maybe you can get 2 teams in, depending how it all shakes out. But I think it's really exciting and fun for the Big 12 on the field.
It's interesting Craig brought that up. I actually, when I do the preseason poll, put it up on Twitter, that the station does, our group, and it came up today as a reminder just to make me feel like an idiot, because last year I had West Virginia finishing last, and they made a 9-4 run. I had BYU 15 and Arizona State 16.
There you go.
So next year, whoever I pick in that role, they can make a run at the Big 12 title. It's crazy. It really, really is. Dan, have you ever had an AP top 25 vote?
No. It's too important. I'm not a good voter. I'm not.
In line with that,
there's much, man. Yeah.
In line with that, there's kind of an argument going on this week about BYU being at 14th despite being 6-0, despite having a couple of pretty impressive wins, blowing out K-State, going on the road, beating SMU. Do you get too plussed about polls at this point in time, especially with the playoff? I'm not sure how to really take polls midway through the season, but do you think there's an argument there, and do you think that argument really matters at this stage?
I think one of BYU's problem is it's coming from so far back. No one was expecting anything out of them. But I do agree they should probably be higher. I'd have to look at exactly who you bump down. That's, at this stage of the game, some of this is going to sort out. You're going to have some 2-loss teams this weekend, things like that are probably above them. And it doesn't really matter because they have a path. In the past, it mattered. But right now, if BYU wins all their games, they can be the national champion. And that wasn't the case for most of the history of college football. And so whatever they're ranked, we'll see. Can they get to, they've got a path. So we'll see where they're at the end. I think it'll be interesting whether the Big 12 can get 2 bids. That'll certainly require, look, if BYU and Iowa State, they don't play each other, I'm almost certain, reach the conference championship game, they're both undefeated. Yeah, maybe they both get in. I think people about BYU, and I'm guilty of this year too, it was a little bit of a transition last year, but they're a tough football team. They've always been a tough football program. Kalani Sitake is I don't know if you've ever met him, but he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Very personable, people person. But he was a tough player at BYU, and his program is tough. And you look at that defense, and it plays like Kalani Sitake's kind of attitude, and he's really got a program there. He's been there long enough, and much like Kyle Whittingham at Utah, you know what you're getting out of BYU. And last year wasn't it, but this is kind of what you're going to see. They're just difficult to deal with. So should they be ranked higher? I don't know, probably, but the polls just aren't as important as they used to be. It's about you've got a path and you can win. College football used to be the only sport where you could win all your games and not win the national championship. And that stunk for a long time.
I absolutely did.
Yeah, we have Kalani Sitake. He's a frequent guest on the show. We love Kalani Sitake. Yeah, he's awesome. Dan, going back to when you were talking about the Big 12 about how different teams could win it, teams can rise and fall. Now, it'll be a slower burn in the SEC and Big 10, but look, we saw FSU 13-0, now they're 1-5. With now free agency, can we expect to see more frequency in the first to worst and worst to first kind of football that maybe we see more in the NFL?
Yeah, I think FSU is sort of the proof of like you live by the portal and you can die by the portal. You got to hit on those guys. And last year they did, and this year they didn't. And it's a struggle. I also think, when NIL came in and then the transfer portal, I thought I was on the show and everyone say, oh, it's going to be the rich getting richer and all that. I didn't know how the sport could get more imbalanced because we used to go into seasons 5-6 years ago and go, well, Alabama, Clemson, and maybe Alabama and LSU could win the title this year. That's pretty much it. And they'd be like Notre Dame would get in the playoff and lose by 40 points, or maybe Ohio State. There wasn't a lot. You had to have top 5 recruiting classes for 4 years in a row to be able to win a title. And that's no longer the case. There's a good 15 teams, 12 teams maybe 10 teams that could win the national title, something like that. I think you could reasonably say can win this. What I wasn't expecting was 11 to like 40 is also gotten significantly flatter of a balance. And so you look at a team like Vanderbilt, they didn't just bring in a quarterback out of New Mexico State. They brought in 3 veteran offensive linemen and a bunch of other guys. They had 51 new players on their team this year at Vanderbilt. And when they beat Alabama, they didn't do it by a fluke. They had the ball 42 minutes and like 18 seconds. Like they dominated physically and controlled the ball against Alabama. And so Vanderbilt's not built to win it all, but on any week basis, the gap between an Alabama and a Vanderbilt is much closer. And Alabama and Georgia, they can't keep the depth they once had because these kids are going, I don't want to be third string. I'll go over here and play. I'm only here for 4 years. I only have a few years of eligibility. And I'm going to make some money and go play at this place. So I think there's so much more competitive balance at that top level that any given week, different teams can pop up. And so you're looking now and you're like, man, Indiana got good overnight, right? Pitt rebuilt themselves. We said Vanderbilt, other teams that have just done it. And then you look and go, man, where's Florida State? Where's this team? Where's that team that aren't getting it done? So I think anything can happen at that. It will definitely be a slow burn. You don't just topple a Texas or something like that. You still got to build up, or Ohio State's going to be good. But there's more danger in losing games during the year to just about anybody, or at least having competitive games than I think we've had in a long time.
Do you have an issue with rules changing in the middle of a season in light of Oregon and Ohio State?
Yeah, I'm torn on this. I do out of principle, but I look at that rule and I wonder if we got into this weekend, because I was talking to some coaches this week and they're like, especially at like the end of the half, you could really just muck up drives and like, would this just totally change the way the sport's played? All of a sudden everyone starts trying to run clock by putting too many players in the field. You could put 20 guys out there, not just 12. Like Oregon just put one extra out, just had one extra. I don't even think he did it on purpose. I think it just happened. He's kind of claiming that he's a genius. I'm kind of like Dan. Everyone's like, Dan Lanning, you're a genius. He's like, well, yeah, I'd take it too, right? I would just be like, yeah, definitely, But he's not even saying that. But like, you could put 20 guys out in the field, and then they'd have to. It just would change the way the game's played. So I think I'm all right with it in this instance. But generally speaking, no. Like, if you can exploit a rule, exploit the rule. So I don't know. I'm torn on it. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, I mean, if he really did that, God bless him, it makes him look better. I don't know. It's brilliant. But at the same time, I can't wait. I can't let you go until I hear what you think. We have RJ Choppy, who's part of 105.3 The Fan, coming up next on Jerry's meltdown on radio yesterday, and the Cowboys in what appears to be a very, very tenuous situation.
Yeah, I think you guys, obviously, and anybody who's been around the Cowboys, Jerry Jones has always been such a personable guy, and there's no owner in the NFL that talks to the media more. Every game he makes himself available, talks to the media, no matter how bad the loss. There is no other owner in the sport that would have come down after losing by 40 points or whatever that was and talk to the media. And I think him lashing out is very uncharacteristic. And him making kind of a power move, I'm going to fire you, that kind of thing. It's very un-Jerry Jones. And I think it's more of a tell on how stressful and frustrated he is. Because that's not the Jerry Jones that I've known and I've covered, not on a weekly basis, but I've covered a lot of Cowboy games the last couple decades.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just always been just a really nice guy and a respectful, just a better than any other owner I've ever met in terms of just taking time for people and being polite and in some really tough losses. It's one thing for those guys to stand around after the Super Bowl and take all the credit, but when you get killed by Detroit like that, most of those guys are gone, and he's down there talking to him. So I think it shows his frustration right now, and he should be frustrated.
Craig, you have one more for Dan on college football?
Yeah, Georgia, Texas this weekend. Mighty huge game for the SEC, for both programs, and for the entire country to take in this weekend. What's your level of excitement, anticipation, and just your thoughts on that matchup in general?
Yeah, very excited. Obviously, I think it's going to be a incredible game, tons of talent, and a really big game. Texas can put themselves in the driver's seat here in the SEC to at least get to Atlanta. It also has that chance of setting up the mega game against A&M. Just anything that increases the excitement for that, I'm all for. And it's a big game for Georgia. I mean, you lose 2, say, they can still get in the playoff. They can, but they're going to be like a 10 seed. They kind of got to win out, and they're not going to host a game. They're not going to get a bye. They're going to be on the road. There's a lot there for Georgia. So it's there's a lot at stake. It's going to be I would expect a very highly competitive game. And look, this is why they went to the SEC, right? They wanted this kind of excitement, this kind of weekend, this kind of home environment, having teams like that come into Austin when traditionally they played their biggest game up in Dallas, not getting that on campus. So I think it should be a great weekend for the Longhorns, and it's a huge, interesting game for both teams.
Dan, thank you. As always, appreciate your access. Dan,
anytime, guys.
Thank you. Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports, with us on 365 Sports. Always appreciate that kind of a potpourri. And we're doing a little bit more NFL than normal because of the Jerry meltdown and a couple of our guests, including, because I saw him tweet about that also earlier. And he's right about Jerry. Incredibly accessible. Can make even the person that doesn't like him at all, if you spend 5 minutes with him, you'll be like, God, what a great guy.
That's why he's successful.
Yeah.
It's as much of, he knows where to spot the oil and, those types of things, make a business deal. But a lot of that has to do with his personality. And, I'll guarantee you there's like an Eagles fan somewhere who's like, I can't, if I saw him, you give him 5 minutes, it'd be like, Jerry, you son of a, like that would be.
I mean, I remember the first time I met him was at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. And we had him on the show. My dad sponsored the table so that we could spend a little bit more time with him. And it's an experience I will always thank my dad for, because it really helped me. But I remember thinking that morning, man, he's just ruined the Cowboys for so long, Jerry. And then I met him, and my dad had met him first. And he's like, you're Paul, right? I met your dad. Hell of a guy. And then we're all of a sudden talking, and I'm like, wait a minute, I hate you. Yeah. I'm mad at you for this. And then he's disarmingly charming all the time. And that's why whenever, I hear people will say oh, this coach will never come there. I'm like, if Jerry wants him, he'll probably go, because all it takes is a couple minutes, and then all of a sudden the other thing is he's really good at telling you what you want to hear.
Well, you're also dealing with people who have big egos as coaches, so that I'll be the guy that gets along with Jerry. And
most of the coaches, Jason Garrett doesn't have a negative word to say about it. Neither does Wade Phillips. Bill Parcells even has talked, warmly about Jerry, even though that didn't last all that long. So, it's not, Jimmy Johnson and he were friends before, and then they were enemies, and now they're cool again, or, they're on speaking terms. But that was more about two old friends butting heads than, Jerry being some kind of, maniacal jerk, right? So, yeah, it's a completely different animal with Jerry Jones.
Yeah, it is. And RJ Choppy of 105.3 The Fan was one of the co-hosts yesterday morning when Jerry kind of had that erratic, went off. It went viral, and I had a chance to visit with him for a little bit earlier today. We'll have that next. His response, what bothered him the most? Was it the Jerry interview on the air live with him and RJ? Also with Sean and Bobby, or was it something that was said by Jerry later in the day? And what are they going to do now? Because there is an off week, as Chuck brought up earlier. Will they do that segment again? Will Jerry apologize? That and more. And what was the reaction RJ received from around the country after that went viral? This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. Great sponsor of this show, the Duvall family with their amazing ranch with Angus cattle. Next auction is October 23rd and 24th. You can go online, click on TexasBeefHouse.com, or go to bidonbeef.com, who they partnered with earlier in the year to give you a chance, if you like beef, to give you a chance to buy your beef at the price you want to pay. Now, I mean, you could do that. You go to a grocery store. You might have let's say, a 2-pack of boneless ribeyes. You can go to the butcher shop inside of a grocery store here in the Waco area, H-E-B, and elsewhere. It might be Kroger or Brookshire's or whatever grocery store or chain you use. And you can pick and choose. Okay, that's okay. But the price per pound is set by them. The price per pound with TexasBeefHouse.com with these live auctions, 3 of them this month, including the 23rd and 24th, the next one, you pay what you want to pay. And if it's too much, you walk away. If it's what you want to bid and you win it, they will send it to you anywhere. They will do that. Samantha Duvall takes care of that. They also, of course, every week we have our college football pick'em contest. $100 gift card thanks to Kim Coulter. To whoever wins that, Paxton won it this past week. TexasBeefHouse.com and use 365 Sports as a code word to get $25 off your first order of $100. This is TexasBeefHouse.com.
Announcing Genco's Car Hugger Special. Right now, refinance your auto loan at Genco and get 3 months of no car payments. Plus, your loan will be automatically entered for a chance to win your next 3 car payments on us. Enjoy 5.19% for 48 months and then skip your payments until 2025. Subject to credit approval and membership eligibility. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
RJ Choppy, 105.3 The Fan, good friend of mine. We worked together for a short time back in Dallas, and now on 105.3 The Fan does the morning show with Sean Sharif and also with Bobby Belt. RJ, we've discussed and everyone's seen what Jerry was saying, etc. I traded a text with you last night. There's a couple of things. First of all, how much of what he said on the radio kind of bothered you, or as I think I heard you say, what really bothered you the most is when he started doubling down on paying you guys, etc. Just was a bad look in my opinion.
Yeah, what he said on the radio, that didn't bother me as much. You get heated in the moment, and that happens, right? It was disappointing, but it happened. What he said afterwards to Diana Rossini, where he talked about paying us, which he doesn't pay us. I wish he did. Take the money. I'm sure his checks are pretty good and they're pretty big. So kind of wish he did. But yeah, that bothered me a lot more. That was unbecoming, I thought, of like what an NFL owner should say and do. That's just not cool. And it also made me wonder, does he just view us as not even employees, but you know what I'm saying? It just kind of it left a sour taste in my mouth.
What has been the reaction that you've received, and also what the radio station thought about it?
Well, I'll tell you this. I've heard from more people in the last 24 hours than I probably have in 24 years. It's amazing. I'm still catching up the messages. I think I woke up this morning. I still had about 35 unread messages that I hadn't had a chance to get to yesterday. So consider yourself lucky that I responded to you.
I love it. I love it.
But yeah, right. The radio station's been great. They've had our back, and they said, y'all didn't do anything wrong. We weren't combative. We're not a confrontational show. We don't do confrontational interviews generally. I can count on one hand how many we've done. But yeah, the feedback's been really, almost universally positive. The media will stand. They'll get behind each other in moments like this, and they'll have each other's back. But it's been a wild day, I'll say that.
Well, I heard you this morning, because I do listen to you guys on the way to work out and on the way back to my condo, but you described what happens when there's a relationship with a team, a college, and a radio station. And what happens is that the college or the team, they get paid. They control the inventory, although there's some also local where the stations can also sell pieces of the game, I believe, and there's shows that go with that. And I don't know if Jerry was just, do you feel like he was trying to also do what he did to deflect from the fact they got their asses kicked on Sunday?
Yeah, we've seen this before, and not necessarily from him, but from other GMs. When they want to make a point, they'll get angry, and that will show the fans that they are just as upset as we are. And we were the platform that he was able to vent that out. And I think it came out and it came across in a way that it just sounded really bad. And I haven't heard from Jerry. I don't expect to. He's never called me before, but ever. But yeah, it just came out that way, and I think he was trying to. What happens is that sometimes when the what hits the fan, and it's on him, the buck stops with him, and he has said the buck stops with him, that he got cornered and he felt cornered and he attacked.
I know that you have him on, if you can, as a bye week next week, once a week. What do you think that might be like? Do you think there'll be a clearing of the air prior to that? What do you expect?
Yeah, I don't know that we have him on next week anyway because of the bye week. So I think it's going to be 2 weeks from now or 2 weeks from this past Tuesday. So it'll be after the San Francisco game, which, there's no telling. They could lose 42-10, and he could be in an awful mood again. I honestly don't know. I don't know how it's going to be approached. Look, if he's going to be on the show, I think that there's going to have to be some mention of it, right? When he comes on, I can't imagine we're just going to bring him on and act like this never happened. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's the right thing to do. But we haven't even gotten that far. We haven't even thought about that far. So we'll see what happens. I hope he's not on next week because I'm off on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to miss that.
Yeah, well, so you're off next Tuesday. Sean's out because of a procedure. And so I remember him yesterday saying that, hey, by the way, if I'm also up on Thursday and Friday, don't think it has anything to do with this segment. But
right.
He's always been so accessible to a point where even I saw Chuck Cooperstein tweet this on Sunday, that one of the issues is this like one-on-one cluster after every game, that nobody else in that position anywhere in pro sports does that. Some maybe prior to a game. And it's weird that he does that no matter what, win 45-7 or lose 46-9, whatever it was. But he is accessible. Yeah, I've known you for a long time. I know, I listen to you guys. I know what it's like. You guys do a great job. I'm not patting you on the back. You don't need that. But it was so bizarre. I was like working out and listening to that, and I stopped. And I'm like, wait a minute, what is he talking about here? And I thought you guys handled it incredibly well and did not back off from what you did in any particular way. What did management at 105.3 The Fan, did anyone say anything?
No, they said it was us. They were very happy with how we handled it, and they were very happy with how we handled it the rest of the show, and today for that matter. We're not trying to start a war with Jerry.
Right.
That's not a good one. But they were very happy. They're supportive. They want us to, kind of. Continue the relationship, obviously, with them. But look, if Jerry wants to change shows and go on our afternoon show, G-Bag Nation or KNC Masters midday, if he wants to do that, I'm sure that's his prerogative. If he wants to do that, but I mean, the same questions are going to come from them that come from us, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not state-run media. This is not Pravda. Use a Soviet reference. But I don't know how many people still know what that is, by the way. But yeah, they haven't said anything that he has contacted them or anything on it. No.
RJ, thanks for your time. I know it's been a whirlwind, and also I'll close it out with this. You were on Dan Patrick. We all have great respect for what he's done throughout his career. When they contacted you, I mean, that's kind of like, listen, you're good at what you do. We're good at what we do, but there are certain like shows, and I would think that's kind of like being on the Taj Mahal at Mount Rushmore, right?
Oh, that was cool, man. When I saw that, it came from a number it came from an area code that I recognized as Bristol, Connecticut, right? So I was like, oh, I wonder who that is. And it just said, hi, RJ, I'm producing the Dan Patrick Show. And I was like, whoa, okay. All right, I'd love to. Let's how fast do I say yes? I had never been on Dan before. It was just crazy. It's like, this is one of the he's one of the sports talk radio icons.
Yep.
Along with, your Mike and the Mad Dogs and your Colin Cowherds. I mean, these are the guys that have been around forever, and he's one of them. He's in that club.
RJ, thanks, buddy. Appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of the week. Thanks for your time, and I thought you guys handled it incredibly well.
Thank you, Smokey. Anytime, brother.
RJ Choppy, 105.3 The Fan on 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. They have some of this right now in October. Each Wrangler has a trail-rated badge, which indicates that the vehicle has passed a series of off-road tests capable of handling the toughest terrain. These tests include off-road traction, maneuverability, articulation, ground clearance, and water fording. That is right now available on the lot with over 300 cars available, both. And that's new, but a bunch of pre-owned cars is where I bought my Ford Explorer back in 2020. Buy any new Jeep and get the Jeep Wave program, which includes 2 oil changes, 2 tire rotations, good for a couple of years from the date of purchase. Ram Power Days continues in October. Also, 300 new cars I brought you, including get a demo 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab 4x4 for $16,000 off MSRP, or 0.9% financing for 72 months on an in-stock 2024 Ram 1500 Crew or Quad Cab. It is Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Chad Brendle joins us, covers Cincinnati Bearcat Journal. Does a great job with that. He is on with us 365 Sports. It's been a while, Chad. How you been? Uh-oh.
You're muted, Chad.
Oh, there we go. I'm good. My dogs were barking, so I didn't want you guys to hear that. But
no,
Bearcats are good again. So you guys have me back on. It's nice.
Yeah, I mean, and what a nice story. I mean, you got the Arizona State, what they've done. There's some teams that are down based on expectations. What BYU's done is phenomenal, too. Why is Cincinnati better than perhaps the expectations at the start of the year?
They got quarterback right. I mean, that's what it comes down to in college football in 2024. It always has, but in the transfer portal era, if you're going into the portal and you're looking for a starting quarterback, the success of your season depends on getting that evaluation right, finding a guy that fits your budget and can win you football games. And Brendan Sorsby has been outstanding, and that gives Cincinnati a chance to win every week. I mean, guys, we're 4 points away from having a completely different conversation about Cincinnati because they gave away a game at Pitt. Like, they had that game won, and they blew it. It was 27-3, and they let Pitt win. And Texas Tech, I mean, that was, a couple mistakes, and they could have walked out of Texas Tech with the victory, and this team could be 6-0 and be one of the, biggest stories in the country for their turnaround. So, you got to get quarterback right. They got Brendan Sorsby right, and that changes the whole dynamic of what you can do.
Yeah, Chad, he's a Texas guy, so knew a little bit about him. Transferred from Indiana, as you mentioned there, but I didn't expect this. I don't know what the expectations were over on your side of the fence, but what have you been most impressed by him, and is it more than you expected when they initially landed him?
More than I expected when they landed him, yes. But, in having conversations with people around the program, as soon as his name went in the portal, they were on it. And they made that happen really quick. And a lot of people don't know this nationally, but at the end of the process, at the end of the transfer portal cycle, he got a call from Lincoln Riley on that last visit weekend and said, I want you to come out to USC. And Brendan Sorsby had already kind of cast his lot with Cincinnati and said no to USC, which is, to Lincoln Riley, which is, a quarterback maker. So, they had a feeling that they had got this one right from the jump. When you watched him at spring practice, you could tell he had something. Did I know he was going to be this good? No, a lot of that is how good did they manage to do getting receivers and talent to go around him. And they've done a great job there, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit, but you could tell he was a guy that had something different about his game and had a little bit of that confidence, that belief in himself that the great quarterbacks have. So I don't know if I saw this coming, but we definitely were pretty confident it was going to be an upgrade from a year ago.
Chad, you mentioned those skill players. The running backs are good. The wide receivers are good. Like, they were really, especially if you looked at the way they ran the ball last year, they didn't have problems that most teams that had the record they had last year have along the offensive line. Like, it was really, they needed a plug-and-play guy at quarterback to get them back to relevance again.
Yeah, they also, like I said, they also did really well. They went and got a local guy that was at Ohio State for 4 years. He caught 4 passes in 4 years. And now Jim Nagy's talking about him being a second-day draft pick in tight end Joe Royer. That's how good he's been this season. And then you had Xavier Henderson, who was a transfer from Florida that was here last year. That was really good. But then you go out and you find a guy like Tony Johnson, a wide receiver that has been good, caught a touchdown pass against UCF, a guy named Jamoy Mays that they brought up a level. He has been really good for them. So not only did they hit on Sorsby, but they made sure they had a bunch of talent that scattered in around him. And that has really made this offense take a large jump.
Chad Brendle with us. I had a couple of Cincinnati Bearcats fans in the chat. This Satterfield, he wasn't the most popular, right? Because obviously Fickle was there. Now he moved on to Wisconsin. Are people starting to kind of come around to him as the head coach?
Yeah, I think, it was a tough situation. One, Cincinnati and Louisville hate each other, right? Yeah. Like, that's been a rivalry for decades. And so you take a coach that Louisville fans were happy to get rid of, and Cincinnati fans are all like instantly going to be on the defensive. And trust me, my mentions still, when Cincinnati loses a game and we post the Scott Satterfield press conference from after the game, it's still filled with Louisville fans. Like, get a life. What are you doing? You got your guy in Jeff Brown. Move on. But so yeah, and replacing, it's really hard to replace a legend. And when you talk about Cincinnati football, Brian Kelly and Luke Fickell, those were the guys that took Cincinnati to incredible heights. So following Luke Fickell was going to be tough. The roster wasn't in a great situation, and you were moving leagues. So it was going to be really difficult for Scott Satterfield, regardless, last year. And then they didn't get quarterback right. Emory Jones didn't work out. And, once things, if you go back and look at last year, there were a lot of close games at the beginning of the year that, a mistake here and there, they let get away. And then it kind of snowballed. The team lost confidence. There was a lot of, the locker room wasn't great. Thanks to Central Florida for taking a couple of those guys off our hands for us. But, ultimately it snowballed and they weren't ready. And they had a year to get ready. And I think one of the underrated things, they have a really, really good recruiting talent acquisition department. And those guys have done a really good job understanding what needed to be done and how to restock this roster. And I think they deserve a lot of credit as well, because there's a lot of transfers and there's a lot of true freshmen that are making an impact for Cincinnati this year that kind of have allowed them to turn things around.
Chad, have you seen the recruiting start to uptick now?
Not yet, because it's fresh still. It's just happening. But I'm interested to see what that list looks like. Usually we're able to get that completed by Thursday or so for who's going to be in town for the homecoming game this weekend at noon. But yeah, I think, people are going to start paying a little bit more attention. Where it might help more is they've got a couple kids that are committed. Like they've got a kid, Benny Patterson, that's from Indianapolis area. And all of a sudden he's got Michigan and USC and, all these high majors are jumping in on him. You hope that winning gives you maybe a little bit better chance to hold on to some of these guys that you've done a good job identifying so that they don't get away and end up, at a program that's having a little bit more success. You can say, hey, look, we've got this thing back on track. Like, you committed here for a reason. Let's stick with it.
So, Chad, 4-2 very well could be, 6-0, as you pointed out earlier, 4 total points. There's an easy way to see how this is even better story at this point. But Arizona State this weekend at home, and I'm sure you've seen the quarterback news coming out of the Sun Devils, PR offices. That's pretty notable there, obviously. Just your thoughts on Arizona State, the defense going up against Cam Scatterbo, probably even more so now that Jeff Sims is playing quarterback. How do you feel about the defense and what you've seen there? Sorsby's obviously been great, but that side and this matchup, what are your thoughts entering Saturday?
So they're getting better. You guys know this. I don't know how many people on the national level do. They brought in Tyson Veit to run the defense this year. Tyson Veit was kind of the right-hand man of that defense at Iowa State. And I think it's taken a lot of sorting and figuring and okay, who is the right fit for these positions? Because they brought in so many. I mean, they have 47 new guys on this roster that weren't on the roster last year. So you've got to do some experimenting and you've got to find out, okay, not only this is the right guy for this position, but then how are we best suited using this guy? And you're starting to see the linebackers come around, which that Iowa State defense, linebackers have been the forte of that Iowa State system, the 3-3-5 stack with 3 safeties. And Cincinnati's linebackers are starting to round into form, and their defensive backfield is starting to play better. Dante Corleone looks like Dante Corleone again. He had a blood clot issue in the offseason, didn't practice all the way through camp live. He was off to the side. He got to do some individual stuff. But now he's starting to, he ragdolled a couple guys from UCF last week. And now you're starting to see that come together. They did not have a lot of success over 4 quarters against Taj Brooks when they played Texas Tech. But then last week they get RJ Harvey and they're able to hold him under 100 yards. 3 games in a row, you're getting a top 10 back. Taj Brooks, RJ Harvey, and now Cam Scatterbo from Arizona State. So hopefully what they were able to do against UCF, they can translate a little bit when they're facing another really talented running back against Arizona State. But I thought that Arizona State passing offense was really starting to click. That didn't exist for them early in the season. And if you watch that Utah game, they threw it really efficiently. They weren't throwing over the top and hitting a bunch of bombs, but they were moving the chains. They were keeping that really good Utah defense on its heels. If they're one-dimensional, that bodes well for Cincinnati coming into this game. That defense is still a work in progress, but it's a lot better than it was at the beginning of the season. And the big thing was, do they have a pass rush? They're now second in the Big 12 in sacks, which nobody expected. And they shut out Houston, and they held UCF to 13. They gave up, half 100 almost to Texas Tech. But in 2 of their 3 games, that defense has performed well, and it's been bend but don't break. I think one of the biggest keys to this Arizona State game, Arizona State is the exact number 108th in scoring percentage in the red zone on offense. If Cincinnati can bend but not break and keep them out of the end zone, they can win this game Saturday.
Chad, one thing on Dante Corleone, we know about the blood clots and the chances of him playing. He had a couple of sacks against UCF. Is he starting to, get that motor? Not that he hadn't been playing with a motor, but is he starting to get in that position to start to wreak havoc?
I think so. I mean, he was really good against Texas Tech, and then he was really good again against UCF. I think he's just back in game shape. I mean, that's the hardest thing. He was healthy, but he wasn't getting live reps, like I said, until the second week of the season. So now, week 7, week 8, that's a guy that's now back into playing shape. And he's it's unbelievable how strong he is and how many times he will just take a center and next thing you know, he's in the quarterback's lap and you're like, how did that happen so fast? And he's explosive. He's 6'2", 340 pounds. He doesn't look like a guy that should have great short area quickness to go with his power. Now that's starting to come back. And I think that is the catalyst for changing who they are defensively because it's so difficult when the pocket collapses that quick. And you just have a guy there that's a fire plug that you can't move.
Chad, interesting schedule remaining. Sun Devils this week. Trip to Colorado still to come. Got a couple of big road trips to Ames and Manhattan. So it's going to be interesting to see how this second half goes. But what have been your impressions of this mutant Big 12, this newest version of the league where, it seems like everybody's got a chance every Saturday?
I'm annoyed with something about the Big 12, guys.
Go for it.
In the past, I've been doing this. I've been doing in the media since 1994. I've been on the UC beat since 2006. In the past, when you talk about preseason rankings for a league, and in terms of looking at a schedule, and you go, wow, Cincinnati avoids 4 of the top 5 teams projected to win the conference, you think, boy, they've got a chance to have a pretty easy schedule. And here we are. Arizona State's in a position to win the league. Colorado's in a position to win the league. West Virginia didn't start well, but now they're playing a little bit better. They're in a position to win the league. It was supposed to be a soft schedule, guys.
I know.
That's not how it looks in week 8.
It's been like this with TCU's run in 22, Baylor in 21. It just the lead. I picked BYU and Arizona State at 15 and 16 in my preseason poll. I picked West Virginia last year to finish dead last. They were 9 and 4. So we are idiots in the preseason poll business, and that's fine.
So,
but you're right.
You know what we did? It got me in a little bit of trouble. But UC the year that they went to the college football playoff, the AAC sent out the preseason media ballot. And we knew okay, Cincinnati and Houston are going to be really good. And then I can't remember who it was, but whoever was at the bottom of the league was going to be really bad. And then we took all the other teams and we put them in a hat and we did a live podcast where we did the media poll by drawing names out of a hat. And I think we're going to have to go back to that.
No.
But 1 through 16 for this league because you got a better chance to be right with that than you do thinking how good these teams are going to be.
Yeah, and I know you got to go, and we have a guest coming up, but we have fans of certain teams in the Big 12 that if they're not good this year, then the league is down. That's not the case. It's just it's unbelievably dysfunctional in a very, very fun-loving way, unless, like you said, Cincinnati gets screwed now on the schedule that appeared to be weak. Chad, love you, man. Thanks for your time as always. Appreciate it every time.
Appreciate you, gentlemen. Anytime, let me know, and I will be here.
Yes, sir. Chad Brendle again with us from Bearcat Journal. And straight to Zach Gelb. He joins us, Infinity Sports Network. He's on his way to a Mets game as they are in the NLCS against the Dodgers. Series tied at 1-1. Zach, you're living your life with this Mets stuff, huh?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. This team, to start off the season, you thought that they were going to be finishing in the bottom of the basement, and they've went on a improbable run. And I feel pretty good about their chances to advance to the World Series. If they take 2 out of 3 at home, which they're more than capable of doing so, I think they'll find a way to get one out in L.A. and then be off to the World Series. We could possibly get a Subway Series with the Mets and the Yankees. So who would have thought that?
Zach, college football this week. We know you don't have you long before you got to catch a train, but this was a crazy week of college football. Did your opinions change about anybody specifically after we had a lot of great, really close games?
Not really. Like, I think Penn State in the first half, they were showing that they're not as great as what their ranking was, but then they came on back. Penn State will continue to be good, not great under James Franklin. They will make the playoff this year. Ohio State, I've been down on Ryan Day. I think he's overrated. I know he's only lost like 9 or 10 games as the head coach, but he doesn't win the big games. So to see his team at the end of the game just look unprepared and have a lack of awareness, I can't say I was stunned by it. It's good to see Oregon get back in the good graces of the college football fan after their slow start to the first 2 games of the season against Idaho and Boise State, where people were questioning them. But I guess the biggest change would be Alabama. I know people could say, well, why'd you change so much of Alabama? They just lost to Vanderbilt. But after the way that they played up against Georgia in the first half, then a sloppy second half, but they won, to lose to Vanderbilt, hey, I'm not making any excuses. Vanderbilt just outplayed them. But then to follow it up and not be able to find that gear to just really crush South Carolina and wipe a lot of sweat off your forehead, I just don't know what to make out of Alabama. Now I kind of look at them and say, oh, a few weeks ago I thought they could be the national championship game. Now it's like I can't trust them in really any game the rest of the season, it feels like, even though I still think they're a good team.
Zach, thoughts on the mega matchup this weekend, Georgia and Texas?
Yeah, so I like Georgia. I don't have a good reason why, other than the fact, like an X's and O reason, that I just feel like college football this year is how we used to look at the Pac-12. Whenever we would fall in love with the team, they would end up losing in a week or two. I just think it's Texas's time, even though they've clearly been the best team in college football through the first 6-7 weeks of the season. I just think it's time for Georgia to kind of avenge what happened to Alabama and beat Texas. But then I looked at that spread and I saw it was like 5.5. I kind of feel like that's begging a lot of people to be suckers and plus the points. So I'm conflicted there, but I will give the slight edge to Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs just to continue what's been a cluster, you-know-what, of the college football season when we don't really know much about any of these teams with the way they've been playing.
Well, they hammered Clemson, and then we wondered if that was a big deal. And now Clemson's playing pretty well, although I'm not sure they've played anybody or beaten anybody. But Kirby will make sure everybody in his team, on his program, whatever the roster, that nobody believes in the Georgia Bulldogs, like he said prior to beating the hell out of TCU a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And I know the game up against Kentucky, they won and they survived. And we kind of played that motivation card, right? Kirby was going to have that, and they came out just flat up against Alabama a little after that. But them being ranked, what, fifth in the country now? Yeah, that's a guy in Kirby Smart who hasn't had to do a lot of motivation the last few years. He has it, but there continues to be a lot of off-the-field problems with that program. And I think they just need some better leadership going on right now. Even though Kirby Smart's an incredible coach, like, he needs to start saying, hey, it's my way or the highway once again, because I think some complacency has settled in with that program.
Zach, Nebraska and Indiana this week. Does our guy, Matt Rule, beat an Indiana team that feels like they're never going to die right now?
I would take the points on that one. I thought it was like a 6.5 point spread. I would plus the points on that one. I think this is coming down to a field goal, and I do believe it's going to be a fun game. A few weeks ago, a lot of people were on Rutgers. They thought Rutgers could beat Nebraska, and that was a sloppy, low-scoring game that didn't really deliver, but Nebraska was able to pull it out. This, to me, is going to be a really fun one because Indiana, with their new coach, they're rolling, and Dylan Raiola, we got to see him go back to looking like Dylan Raiola earlier in the season, where he's still been a great quarterback, but he's just shown some moments where it's like, hey, he's not a junior, he's not a senior, he's not Cam Rising who's playing in like his 17th year. You know, you're going to have those freshman moments, obviously, that do occur. Now it's time to shake off that rust a little bit.
Zach, Ohio State, Oregon was big-time college football at its best in a lot of ways, but interesting story coming out of that is now a midseason rule change as a result of a loophole the Ducks exposed in that game. What are your thoughts on changing rules in the middle of a season?
Yeah, I don't like changing rules in the middle of the season, and I'm a big fan of Dan Lanning. I got a chance to know him well the last few years. He comes on my show all the time. But I was kind of surprised that he gave the smirk. Like, he didn't admit to it at the podium, but him giving that smirk basically said that, yes, it was intentional. So coach pretty much executed everything right until he gave that smirk. But I don't like changing rules in the middle of the season. That's just not something I'm with. I think you do that at the end of the year.
Zach, I know you've got this trained, so tell everybody what you're about to do. It's 6:08 your time. It's 5:08 here, and you're about to go into to watch Game 3 of that Dodgers and Mets series. So where are you right now?
Yeah, so I'm on the corner of Varick Street in New York City, which is next to the Holland Tunnel. So you could hear some lovely New Yorkers right now probably honking their horn as they're sitting in, I don't know, about 6 miles of traffic, and they haven't moved for about 5 minutes. I will then, once I hang up with you guys, walk down to the subway, which is like the worst thing in America, subway in New York City. And then once I get to Penn Station, I will hop on the Long Island Railroad, which is much better than the subway. I will get to the parking lot, eat some food, drink some beer, and then go cheer and be a huge fan, obviously, of my baseball team tonight.
Good for you.
City Field, by the way, one of my favorite parks to go to. Really great venue.
Oh, you've been?
Yeah, I've been. I went a few years ago. It's great. I love it.
You get the filet mignon cheesesteak. Usually I wouldn't recommend a cheesesteak if you're not in Philadelphia, but they do a Pat LaFrida filet mignon cheesesteak, which is just to die for.
Yeah, I discovered that, and I was also not a outside of Philly cheesesteak guy until I had that one. It's very good. Zach, I saw one of your tweets this morning about Aaron Rodgers and his general managing of the Jets. How badly do you think that will end? With he's got everything he wants, but he hasn't maybe identified that he's the problem.
Well, it's going to end poorly. Like, the Jets could save some face here and go make the playoffs. I think that's a possibility. But the Jet fan was delusional enough thinking that they were going to go to a Super Bowl this year. They're not even going to an AFC championship game. The line still hasn't been fixed, even though they've made some upgrades this year. It's still a bad offensive line. Rodgers could still throw it back a little bit for a few weeks, but at the end of the day, he is a 40-year-old quarterback playing on one leg, coming off a major Achilles injury. So you go get Devontae Adams, it's the right move, but just look what he did with the coach. Everyone in America knew Robert Saleh wasn't fit to be this team's head coach this year, but Rodgers liked him because he controlled him. And then the moment when you had Robert Saleh kind of say, hey, the cadence needs to change with Rodgers, Rodgers basically like, bleep this guy, I'm going to get you fired, and then act like he had nothing to do with that. So, Aaron Rodgers, a heck of a quarterback, a first-ballot Hall of Famer, one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time, but you will walk away being a bit disappointed with Aaron Rodgers, even with how great of his career is, because how he won that Super Bowl so early in his career, it's alarming how he's not been able to get back to another Super Bowl, let alone win another one.
Hey, man, go get down that tunnel. Go enjoy tonight. Enjoy the Mets and Dodgers. Zach, thanks for giving us time on what is a fun, personal, and yet amazing, the series, and possibly the Mets and Yankees in a collision course. We'll see. Thanks for your time.
You got it, guys. Be well. I'll talk to you next week.
All right, that's Zach Gelb with Infinity Sports Network. We got to know Zach when Matt Rule was hired by Baylor. Didn't know much about him. And Zach allowed us to slowly but surely, and pretty quickly, I guess, not slowly but surely, give us a lot of insight on Rule when he was at Temple and the role he had there. All right, so that's Zach Gelb. We're not done. Still a lot to get to, including we will look at the Four Corners schools. It's the Big 12 Pod Four Corners. That's around the corner. Also, Paul Catalina's top 5. Do we have anything we have not yet brought up? Oh, I did bring up my disastrous Big 12 preseason poll because it's got to be about transparency, right?
All of us had, disastrous Big 12 polls.
Garrett, so this is mine. I do this. I'm like, it's masochism because I did this last year. I'm not afraid to say, where am I about midway through the conference schedule? Kansas State, Utah, Arizona, Oklahoma State. Ouch. Part of that's right. Kansas, Iowa State 7, Tech 8, Arizona State, BYU at 15, 16. I am a college football idiot.
Well, it's easy to poke fun now. It's like, were we supposed to know Cam Rising was going to get hurt?
No.
That's part of the deal, too.
Was I supposed to know that Jeff Grimes and Jaden Daniels wouldn't work well together?
Well, maybe based on the fact you got to see Jeff Grimes the last couple of years. But, certainly BYU is a surprise regardless. Like, that's just a miss on people's parts. But there are other factors. I'm not excusing it at all. That's just the way the Big 12 has been. But, I had Utah at 1. Well, yeah, I think Utah would probably be close to 1 if Cam Rising was healthy all year long. But outside of that, there are a lot of surprises. And Arizona State certainly has I think some of that too, though, guy, is like
I don't know. Would Utah have been that much better, or would I mean? I know if he's healthy.
Have you watched their offense?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm asking you is, yes, it's terrible. They got Bernard at running back. He's pretty good, but would they be 5-1 or 6-0?
Yeah.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah, I do. Okay. I do think they'd be 5-1 or 6-0 if they had the ability to pass the ball consistently. I mean,
God, he looked so bad Friday night.
They went and beat Oklahoma State in Stillwater.
Yep.
And they turn around, they lose by 13 to Arizona. Arizona's not a good team right now, but they only scored 10 points.
I know.
That's Isaac Wilson.
I get it.
He had put up 19, or they put up 19 total the week prior, 22. The good news is the defense only gave up 19. So you didn't really panic too much because, hey, you went into enemy territory in Stillwater, and it kind of masked maybe what were some issues. But then you turn around, you scored 10 against Arizona, and you scored 19 against Arizona State.
Yep.
You haven't cracked the 20 mark in your last 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think Cam Rising would matter, and Cam Rising played this past week, but that was not Cam Rising. That was his long-lost hurt brother that was trying to –
That's the punch-drunk boxer.
Yeah, so I do think they could have scored 23 points against Arizona if Cam Rising was healthy. I think they could have at least been more competitive against Arizona State and hit the 20 mark to at least make that a closer game. But the other ones, K-State, everybody's, I think, pretty much right on. Colorado's a team that a lot of people were probably sitting there having in the middle. They're trickling up to the top. But I think Iowa State, that was a team that I know I had relatively high. Oklahoma State's the big miss. They're the biggest miss.
I was nervous that I'd get hammered by Wet Blanket if I did not get them up on
I think we all got peer pressured a little bit by Wet Blanket, honestly.
Yeah, Wet Blanket's a very fierce individual.
So we'll blame it on Wet Blanket. But, no, I mean, you look at it, BYU and Arizona State have been the big surprises going from the bottom to the top. If you're in the middle to the top, like Texas Tech, I don't think that's really all that crazy because it's still early as well. There's a whole half of the schedule to play. So let's revisit this again in about 7 weeks.
Yeah, no,
but the big surprises are definitely, BYU, and then you couldn't see what was coming with Utah. But Iowa State's where they should be. K-State's where they should be.
Yeah, Kansas, of course. I think everybody got their jollies a little bit too high. I think I had Iowa State 7. There's still games to be played now. There are still games to be played, and my God, we've learned in this conference, don't take anything for granted, and a team can be on a 3-game slide if they blink.
Yeah, Oklahoma State and Kansas are clearly the biggest misses. And it just depends on where you had Kansas in the hierarchy. Utah, I don't count that as much because of the Rising injury. So that's unpredictable. What were you going to say, Paul?
I had him 3rd.
Yeah,
so Kansas.
I think I had them 4th, maybe. Yeah,
Kansas State, Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State.
Yeah, so I bought into that hype as well.
And you know what? Here's the thing. You're right. I was bullied a little bit by Oklahoma State fans because I said
Don't admit that.
No, all damn summer that I thought that Alan Bowman wasn't going to be good, that the numbers don't bear it out. And you give somebody a year to figure out that your quarterback's not that good, all these other teams, then they're going to exploit it. I should have ranked them lower.
There's that, but their defense also stinks, especially with Colin Oliver out. That just cratered the entire operation, basically. And then Ollie Gordon's just totally a non-factor, and I don't think anybody could have predicted that.
No kidding.
With what they had coming back. So that they've definitely been a huge disappointment, along with Kansas. TCU to an extent. They don't really have an excuse to be as bad as they technically are. But then again, they're 2 games from the top? So it's not like there's this huge, lagoon separating these teams. Like they're all, again, capable of beating one another. But BYU on top and Texas Tech, if they win this weekend, man, they're 4-0 in the league. And say what you want about whether you believe in it and its sustainability or not, but you get the power of belief going. You're 6-1, bowl eligible, and 4-0 in the conference to start things off with.
They've had to win games down the stretch before, not last year because Texas was the last game they got splattered, but they've had to close hard to get to a bowl, right?
Yeah.
But they could be 5-0, and yet there are still, or 4-0. There's still 5 games left in the conference, and there's just not.
But point is, you're sitting really nice at 4-0.
No, it'd be fantastic. Yeah. All right, so that's me being transparent with this right here. I put 2 more weeks on this reminder to just see if anything much changes. But Oklahoma State's not going to be a part of it. Arizona's not going to be a part of it. Kansas is not going to be a part of it. And neither is West Virginia, and I had them part of them. And neither is Utah. And that's 5 of the teams in the top 8 that I with a big, big miss. All right, when we come back, we'll look at that Big 12 Four Corners pod. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com. Dr. Rob Maxey. Their business in Waco. And I'm telling you, if you are anywhere around the state of Texas, now again, El Paso, that's a long drive. But if you're within 2 or 3 hours of Waco, it is worth finding a way to get in touch with them or having your doctor contact them to get your MRI, because $497 or less every single time what it costs to do an MRI. And maybe your insurance is going to help you a little bit with that, and they'll make sure they file that with your insurance. For me, I'm on Medicare. I went in there, about 2 to 4 weeks ago to get one more new look on my lower back that's got impingement and a nerve issue that pops up. It's just going to be what I deal with. And I was like, Medicare, I had it taken care of. $497 or less is a great deal, because the average MRI can be over $1,100 or more. Dr. Rob Maxey and his staff, his partners, have done a great job. Located on I-35 in the Central Texas marketplace, worth the drive, and state-of-the-art imaging machine at IdealMRI.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at Baylor.edu/alumni.
Midway Athletics and UBO Business Services are 2 names that exude winning. From Midway's top Central Texas Star test scores to college-like extracurricular facilities and UBO Business Services' industry-leading customer service scores, you can trust in these 2 winning programs. Best of luck to Coach Joe Gillespie and the Midway Panthers. And look at your sticker on your office equipment. If it does not say UBO, call Midway Class of 2020, Duff, Daxon, Dane, or Sean Hunt at 254-709-2101 or ubeo.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers, here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Busch Light, the sound of refreshment. The coldest and smoothest light lager there is. Find Busch Light near you.
Oh, I try to do this, and I started this in the last week or two, now that we have meat on the bone when it comes to schedules and obviously wins and losses. In the Four Corners, the teams last week, Paul, Arizona, did they win? No.
No.
Colorado, did they win?
No.
Arizona State, did they win?
Yes.
And so, no, Utah lost to
Arizona State.
So we will talk about Kenny Dillingham and the Sun Devils from Tempe, Arizona.
Well, my feeling about them this week in particular has changed with the fact that Sam Levitt, who has been getting better every single week, is now out for a couple weeks, and the human turnover machine, Jeff Sims, is in his spot, which changes as they go up to play a tough Cincinnati team. But you can't sell short of what they've done to this point in the season and how impressive it is. They just better hope that Jeff Sims has been coached up by Kenny Dillingham, who is he's a definite quarterback whisperer, that's for sure. And maybe some of those things are gone. There's going to be a lot of running from Cam Scatterbo and probably a lot from Jeff Sims. So if they can do that, they can win. But still impressive, but this one's going to be tough without Sam Levitt.
Yeah, I think the Sam Levitt injury changes the trajectory that they were on, and now I'm a lot more doubtful about them getting a win this weekend than I otherwise was. Knew Levitt had gotten dinged up, but didn't know that it was to that extent where he's going to probably miss a couple of games. We'll see. Like I said earlier, play this week, get a bye, and all that. But fractured ribs, like, is that what we're talking about here? And yeah, it is. And so that's something that could keep you out for quite a while. So that's concerning, but is it fractured? Maybe not fractured, whatever the rib injury is, whatever the extent of it is, but those are tricky beans, your ribs. So we'll see if
you ever had a bruised rib or a fractured rib?
I've had a bruised rib.
You can't breathe. It's
yeah,
hard.
So that's tough. So yeah, not I thought I saw fractures. Not fractured, because obviously that would have been worst case scenario. But still, that's a tricky injury that you don't know how long it's going to take to heal. So that's a bummer, but on the bright side, that was a really nice win last week over Utah. That was a signature win for Kenny Dillingham. A big moment for Cam Scatterbo to really be on the national stage and show his abilities, and some cool videos coming out of that game. I think offensively it's tough because you started to like what you saw a little bit more in the passing game, but now you have the quarterback change. So I just anticipate lots and lots of Cam Scatterbo in the run game and the pass game and special teams. So more of the same, really, as far as that goes. Defensively, I think they've been playing pretty well. So, yeah, I like where they are. They're sitting pretty. I would have probably still picked Cincinnati even if Levitt was healthy, but I don't know. I would have spent a couple more days really thinking about that. Regardless, they've got some winnable games moving forward if Levitt's to miss a couple weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I mean, at Oklahoma State, UCF, I mean, those are a couple programs that are struggling right now, so they need to jump up and get that bowl win sooner rather than later, because you don't want to get into those last couple weeks and be like, man, we've got to beat BYU to get bowl eligible, or beat Arizona on the road at the end of the year to get bowl eligible. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes, but the quarterback is where you look with this team right now.
Jeff Sims can come up with some big plays. The problem is, can he hold on to the damn football? I mean, Arizona State at Cincinnati, and that does look like a huge break for the Bearcats. Can they take advantage of it? All right, Arizona, they've lost to Texas Tech and then BYU. Now play Colorado, two teams within the four corners. We'll get to Colorado in a second, 3 o'clock Saturday on Fox. Paul, Arizona Wildcats.
They're an average team. They've got some good pieces in Fafita and McMillan. We say this every week, but they're not very good on defense. They can kind of get one-dimensional. I haven't watched them like religiously. I've seen them a few times, and every time I'm like, damn, that McMillan's good. And then I'm like, well, they just got to have something else. And this is what happens when you have a coaching change. Like, yeah, you've got some good players, but you also have, some other things to deal with. And Colorado's coming in probably at full strength on offense. Horn and Hunter are going to play according to Coach Prime. So I think that one's just going to be a really tough one. But I do think that they can get some chunks on the Buffaloes. So should be a little bit of a decent game, but I still think Colorado's probably going to win that one. So
that'd be a big-time win. Now, Dion, the big-time win was when they beat UCF at the time on the road. But that would be, to me, like it keeps them from just ending up at 6-6.
But they also got absolutely pummeled by BYU last week.
No, they did. Yeah.
I don't know where their heads will be at for
You're
sure.
Talking about Arizona.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Craig?
Yeah, I think it's a situation where there's some good things going on outside of Fafita and McMillan, but it's just getting overshadowed in general by the losses. I do think defensively they're not great by any means. And I thought they'd take a step back with the coaching changes, but they're respectable in some ways. The problem for them is they've got their whole secondary basically out with injuries this week. So the last team that you want to play is Colorado when you've got a bunch of injuries in the secondary that's hitting your corners and your safeties. That's concerning for me going into this game. And it's also concerning that you're just so reliant on Noah Fafita and Tetero McMillan, and that in a lot of occasions here recently, Noah Fafita is not finishing drives, whether it's turnovers or whether it's not converting on fourth downs. But there's been some really bad turnovers here lately. I don't know if he's just trying to do it all himself or, other teams just make plays, but they've got to be able to finish drives, and they're not doing that right now. They're getting into territory. If you watch the BYU game, they got down there and had an opportunity to score on a few occasions and throw a pick or, just stall out or whatever it is. So that's where my concern is. You just can't rely on Fafita and McMillan to save you every single week. And you've got to be able to punch it in when you get the opportunity. So if they can correct that, I think that things would look much improved. But if that remains a problem, then, yeah, they're going to continue to pile up losses because you got to be able to score points, and you can't just expect that defense to keep you in a low-scoring affair, and come out on top of that, especially against Colorado, especially when your secondary is banged up. So I don't like them this weekend. I think they're likely going to take a third straight loss, even though this game's at home. If not, that'd be a great win to beat Colorado, but I'm not very optimistic right now about where they sit based on what we've seen.
And, Arizona, Colorado, both from the four corners in the Big 12 pod. This is when you try to test the mindset of your football team. Colorado had a 3-game winning streak, one in a Hail Mary and then overtime against Baylor. Then they go pound UCF, and they're kind of rolling. This, to me, is an interesting game because they were in a tough, down-to-the-wire game with K-State, in a game they could have won. I'm sticking with the Buffaloes, even though they are the team that is on the road in Tucson. All right, Craig, your thoughts about the Buffaloes, and then Paul.
I mean, Shador's great. To play K-State to the wire like they did last week was super entertaining and I think really encouraging, considering that you had so many guys banged up in that game, particularly at receiver, and to see guys continue to step up throughout that game. And then they get hurt, like Amari and Miller, hats off to them for just continuing to stay there and fight. And they've obviously got a very deep receiving core. So to know that Horn and Hunter are coming back this week, that's obviously a huge boost. And I don't think that's good news, again, for a banged-up Arizona secondary. So I like Colorado on the road here. I think they're in a really nice spot, better off than a lot of people expected them to be at this point. I think they should be 5-2, 3-1 in the conference. I know they're slight underdogs on the road, but I just think they're playing with a level of confidence that Arizona doesn't have right now. I know they're very leery of McMillan and Fafita and the big play impact those guys can have. But, again, beyond that, what are you really all that concerned with right now with Arizona? That's like something that stands out to you. There's not much. So I think you already, if you're Colorado, have built-in confidence that's just there regardless. If you're 0-6, you'd still be, cocky somehow, right? But this is actually legit, and I think that's a dangerous weapon to have with some super talented players and a defense that's clearly not the walkway or the open door that it was last year. So I like Colorado here. I like where they're sitting, and I think they're going to make a bowl game, and I think that they're going to get one step closer to that this weekend.
Yeah, I think they're definitely making a bowl game. I mean, I don't think the wheels are going to fall off. You only got to get a couple more to get that, and I think that starts this week. I really, I'm impressed with the way they've been able to coach around deficiencies that they can't solve right away. And that to me is growth of a coaching staff. I still think they need a different scheme on offense, and I think they're going to need it when you don't have the guy who's been running this scheme, since he was 15 years old, kind of through high school and Jackson State and everywhere else, when he leaves next year to go to the NFL in Shedeur Sanders. But in the short term, I just don't know if Arizona has enough defensive horses to stop the big play machine that is Colorado.
Yeah, Arizona's favored in this game. They get that 3-point favorite in Tucson, and there's some teams that are on the road that are favored, but Arizona the slight favorite, at least now, in that game. And then the team where the Utah Utes fans are just basically slamming their head against the wall. Now, for sure, that Cam Rising will not be a part of it. Isaac Wilson will be. Craig, you brought up the offense without Rising, and even it was bad watching it on Friday night in their loss to Arizona State. Your thoughts about the Utes? And this is at TCU, right? No. This is home against TCU, and they've been a mess too.
Yeah, they've been a mess. This is a toss-up game, if anything, I feel like. I don't know what to expect here. I guess I'd lean Utah, slight favorites at home, and the fact that Isaac Wilson's played a good number of snaps for you. But, yeah, that was really difficult to watch. I commend Cam Rising for giving it a go. And Kyle Whittingham, I understand kind of how he was trying to play that close to the vest and all of that, but I think it's probably a big weight off everybody's backs that you just know what the deal is now, and there's no more second-guessing or wondering or any of that week to week. I just think that's healthier for everybody to just know who the guy is and move forward that way. So I think they'll rally around Isaac Wilson. Again, he's played a ton of football, but he can't turn the ball over. I mean, he's just a true freshman. I mean, that does need to be taken into consideration as opposed to, the super-duper senior that he's replacing. So there's going to be some ebbs and flows as far as his game goes, and we've seen that already. But if he can protect the football, then I like their chances at home. You're going to lean very heavily on Michael Bernard, obviously, like you did, you have throughout the season, but he had a big game last week. Defensively, you've got to play better than you did a week ago. That was not a good look for them, so they got to shore up some things there. But I still think they're a solid team. They're not at 100% at the start of the year like we thought they would be when they were kind of looking like they could be a machine. They're not that. They've blown a tire, so they are vulnerable, but TCU is such a wild card that it's impossible to go like, oh, yeah, TCU is going to take full advantage of that. Will they? Or will Josh Hoover throw like 5 interceptions? Him throwing around the ball versus this Utah defense will be one side of the game, and then obviously Isaac Wilson and what he can do, but I think Utah's going to make the best of what they have with what they have, and now you roll forward knowing what you have as opposed to a guessing game every week, and I think that's just good in general.
I think he'll improve as the season goes on, and they last year, I think their quarterbacks were hurt with just the specter of who's going to be the quarterback this week, one or the other, and then eventually they finished strong with the goat farmer or whatever that he was, and they did okay, but I think they'll be better on offense with Isaac Wilson than the other backups because he'll get steady progress. Practice is the number one for sure.
Yeah, and you're talking about Bryson Barnes, and he's not even on the team anymore.
Exactly. So they've improved from a year ago at quarterback, even the backup position. But it's still going to be he's still a true freshman. He's going to do true freshman things, and even the best ones do. So. Yeah, I think they'll be up and down. It'll be a roller coaster for them for a little bit. They're not going to contend for the conference anymore, I don't think. But that defense is still really good. Bernard's still really good. So if they can build it around there and regroup with Isaac Wilson, then I think that's good.
One of the things though that happens when your offense is not going to be productive, and especially when you
it hurts your defense for sure.
Yeah, they're on the field. I don't know about time of possession, number of snaps. By the way, back to that Colorado-Arizona game. Colorado. Not a surprise. 131st in the country in sacks allowed, right, out of 133. Arizona is like below the top 50% when it comes to getting sacks on defense. They're 79th out of 133, so that's a stat to see if they can get to Shedeur because a lot of teams have. But Utah, TCU, they're not the one we're discussing. We're talking about Utah. And as we had earlier in the week when we had Scott Mitchell on, Kyle Whittingham's at his breaking point right now with the Utes, but go back to chipping and, being who you are, but they're going to have to win games with that defense, and they're going to have to find a way with Bernard to run the ball pretty well. So there we are with the 4 corners involving the Big 12. And, man, there's so many crazy stuff, and a long way to go. A long way to go. Garrett, do you have the top 10 midseason rankings, and then we'll get to Paul's top 5 here in a moment. ESPN, Adam Rittenberg and his staff had this out. It's the top 25, but the top 10 college football players at the midseason point. Ashton Gente, friend of the show. Cam Ward. Travis Hunter, Hunter, thank you, Garrett. You did fix that. God bless you. Kelvin Banks, the offensive line, the human shield for Texas. Gabriel from Oregon. Will Campbell, LSU offensive tackle. Trey Harris, Paul, you brought him up earlier in the week, Ole Miss wide receiver. The kid from A&M Scorton, who's just absolutely just unbelievable, a fear. He's there. And Ryan Williams, the freshman Derek Harmon defensive lineman, 2 players from Oregon on that list. Shedeur Sanders, by the way, 16th on the list of the top 25. Anybody on that list you've never heard of?
No. I've heard of all of them. I think they're all quite good. I'm glad that Trey Harris is getting more publicity. I know that Ole Miss's schedule wasn't great early in the season, but he is on a ridiculous pace right now, and if he can be healthy in the next few weeks, he's going to keep putting up numbers. He's actually been, outside of Travis Hunter, to me, by far the best wide receiver in the country this year overall, and he's kind of faded into the background because Ashton Genty's doing great things, Travis Hunter's doing great things. You know, there were some other people that came in like McMillan and Luther Burden at that position that had more hype going in, but we need to take notice of Trey Harris, for sure.
Yeah, nothing jumps out. I mean, those are all pretty well-known guys right there. Cool to see, you know, some linemen getting some love there, like Kelvin Banks. Don't typically see that necessarily on a lot of lists because it's just harder to peg, you know, who's playing well at those types of positions versus the guys out there running into the end zone constantly. But, yeah, I mean, Ashton Genty, I'm founding member of the fan club. Been following Cam Ward since Incarnate Word, so cool to see a couple of Texas guys, if not, 3 out of the top 4 there with Kelvin Banks as far as this list goes. And, yeah, I think Genty and Ward and Hunter are your finalists in Heisman right now. And you could throw a couple other names in there that could accompany them in New York, like a Dylan Gabriel, for example. But I do think that those 3 right now are definitely – getting close to booking their tickets to NYC.
Yeah, no, it's a heck of a list. Appreciate ESPN putting it out there. Those top 25, I cut it down to 10, then mentioned Shedeur was at number 16. So, Paul Catalina and his top 5 coming up next. Waco.
Fantasy Sports EVO, the next evolution of daily fantasy sports. Tired of traditional fantasy sports where you spend hours upon hours studying individual players? EVO's unique team-based platform makes it easier than ever for all sports fans to play. No need to know individual players. Just choose your contest, select your teams, and enjoy the game. Whether you access our website from a desktop, mobile device, or the app, the experience is the same. EVO is for all sports fans. Join Fantasy Sports EVO and experience the evolution.
Time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into the Top 5 on your Wednesday. Let's get into the top 5 things you might not have noticed. Brought to you by Texas Beef House. I'm Paul Catalina, and the promo code is 365sports. I shouldn't have to tell you every day. I'm happy to, but come on. I do it for the new people, not for the returners. But new people who now return because you can't get enough of, this huge slice of beef here. They don't sell me at Texas Beef House, I'll tell you that. But 365 Sports, go to bidonbeef.com, get some of the best farm-raised Wagyu beef that you can possibly find. This is top 5 things you may not have noticed. Number 5, the ACC is setting up to be chaotic. Miami is good. Clemson is good. Pittsburgh is good. Louisville's good. SMU's good. Virginia is kind of good. Virginia Tech's not bad. Boston College is good. As a matter of fact, 3 of the teams that are usually good, Florida State, NC State, and North Carolina, suck. They're awful. But almost everybody else in the league is pretty good. It's ridiculous. It's absolute madness, and we're at the halfway point, And this thing could get really ugly if they start sniping each other. Pittsburgh's way better than a lot of us ever imagined they could be. Clemson has found their offense again, mostly because Dabo got out of Garrett Riley's way. Miami has a superstar at quarterback and great talent all over the field. Boston College is really well coached. Thomas Castellanos is really fun to watch. And again, Virginia's 4-2. Tony Elliott's system starting to take hold there. Kyron Drones is a really fun player to watch at Virginia Tech. I could go on and on and on about the ACC, but really setting up to be quite chaotic. We talk about the Big 12 all the time. The ACC is very, very similar. Number 4, Notre Dame can score now. Early in the year, everybody kind of questioned after the Northern Illinois loss and the struggle they had against A&M where neither team scored that much. Like, what is Mike Denbrock doing? Is he really running a system that is favorable to Riley Leonard? Well, now he is. If you watch the Stanford game, they just scored and scored and scored and scored on the Cardinal. Now, can Riley Leonard throw them to a win if somebody stops the run and doubles down and dares him to throw? I think the play-action game for Mike Denbrock will be there, but it remains to be seen how good Notre Dame can be on offense when they play somebody who can actually stop the run. Because when they have played teams that actually stop the run, like A&M and Northern Illinois, they almost lost, but since then, they've gone along pretty well and scored a bunch of points. But can Riley Leonard throw them to a win? That's a big question, but they can score now. Number 3, LSU is figuring it out. They already had a really good offense. Garrett Nussmeier's really coming into his own. I would say right now, draft-eligible quarterbacks, he's in my top 5 or 6. He's playing great. He's just making great decisions. He's bringing his team back. He's keeping his team in the game. Outside of their one loss, like where they just didn't look together, this is a team that now has figured it out on offense. They've got some sort of running game, although it wasn't too much of a factor against Ole Miss. And they're figuring it out on defense, even though their secondary is not a classic LSU secondary. Blaine Baker has kind of started to play to their strengths a lot more. They're getting after the quarterback. Also, Mason Taylor on offense, not a factor for 3 quarters the other night, but guess what? You can't keep him down that long. He's a huge reason why they won that game. Also, Kyron Lacey, the latest in the line of badass LSU receivers, and you saw that on his winning catch the other night. That was right out of the Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson manual right there. Number 2, Iowa can also score now. They've scored 38, 40 points, 42 points in a game this year. Now, are they lighting it up against really good teams? But no, they scored 40 points on Washington this week, which to me is pretty impressive. So if you go, revert back at least closer to the mean, that's still a team with a great defense that can score more points than it did. Kirk Ferentz might be kicking himself a little bit for not moving past Brian Ferentz before, because Tim Lester has got that offense at least moving into a place where they can win games for them, as opposed to they had to win in spite of the offense. They can now maybe even win because of it. Although, when they played Ohio State 2 weeks ago, they did not score. They scored 7 points. But if you're going to not have to play 16, 13 games over and over and over again, that makes Iowa really, really dangerous. And number 1, BYU and Iowa State are not going away. Right now, these are the 2 best coached teams in the Big 12. Iowa State is exactly what Matt Campbell wants them to be, and BYU is exactly what Kalani Sitake wants them to be. They are tough. They don't get frazzled. They just stick it to you. They are fun to watch, and they can beat you comfortably. They're not flying by the seat of their pants. They are in control from first quarter to fourth quarter in most games, or when it comes to the fourth quarter, they've definitely asserted their dominance on you. And BYU was picked towards the bottom of the conference. Iowa State was picked towards the upper middle, and both these teams are dominating the league right now in ways that none of us expected. They are not going away. And right now, I don't want to get in a stadium anywhere near these two, because they are going to beat you up. You're going to walk, you may walk in, you're limping out when you play Iowa State and BYU. That's for sure. That's the top 5. It's time to go home. We'll give you a formal goodbye shortly.
What's happening with you?
Look, I have to do this every day. I gotta throw some hot sauce on it, or it gets dull. It's for the people.
All right, that's Paul's top 5.
I mean, I could just say goodbye and we wouldn't come back.
You're starting to act a little bit senile.
No. I could just say goodbye at the end of it and wrap up the show.
Yeah, like you should.
And then we wouldn't come back, and I
would be out the door.
It would seem like I murdered you, and I don't want people to start asking questions. I've been watching.
Stand in line, man.
I've been watching a lot of documentaries lately. People ask questions.
Stand in line. Thank you, Garrett Ross. Appreciate it. Also, to Emery Winter, such a fine young man who's already editing 365 Sports tonight at 10:30, and every weeknight at 10:30 on the CW. Craig Smoak, who is here every day. Paul Catalina, who's here every day. We have a very tough week, Craig and I, because we have to do a show on Friday instead of high school football.
But you only have
exhausted. Got 2 shows left.
Yeah.
Thanks to what I hope you enjoyed, our guest. And, man, it was great to hear from Bryson Daily of West Point, a quarterback from Abernathy, Texas, and so much more. I'm David Smoak. Thanks to all of you. Yeah, all of you in the chat room. This is 365 Sports, and have a great night.